All right, welcome everybody to our show 2 of WrestleMania weekend of 13 cards subject to change. And of course, we have Jesse here.
Great to be back.
And then we got Zach. Who the heck wants to marry that guy B? I have to get you back from that fat guy.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody is, I guess.
Well, yeah, somebody.
All right.
I met her. I don't know.
Well. All right.
She's good.
Yeah. By the way, so let me get this straight. We've been planning this for a while. We've had all this big stuff, 3 shows. You just ignore our special guest today?
Oh.
You just completely forgot about it?
No, I did not completely forget about him.
How do you not completely forget that you just skipped the intro and don't mention him?
I'm sorry. Do you want to intro or do you want me to?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
That's
children of all ages.
That's just another nut shot coming your way,
yeah,
sir.
Yeah, it is. Ladies and gentlemen, live from his own house, currently watching the Minnesota Twins, Darin Corbin is on the show. How are you, sir?
Well, good thing somebody remembered I'm here, but we can't really blame Leroy because, let's face it, last time that we were in similar vicinity together doing an interview, it didn't go so well for him.
Yeah.
It was slightly painful.
Yeah, well, you know. How can you say slightly painful? You sat through the whole show. Don't give me that.
Well, there's ice, remember.
We were in a high school gym, so there's plenty of ice.
Of course.
Well, Darin, we are live streaming, but you can't see because even if you were able to watch Leroy's. So I'm actually wearing today the Loudmouth Mercenary shirt.
Awesome.
And I had on the powder blue shirt yesterday, and I've got your classic red one for tomorrow. Leroy, for some strange reason, is not wearing one of your shirts today. I don't know why he was not. He talks about how he owns so much of your merchandise, but he decided today was a good day not to wear your shirt. I'm not really sure what that was about.
Well, if you want, maybe in the works, what would actually benefit Leroy a little bit more is if I made Darin Corbin nut cups.
You know what? Yeah, that would probably be better.
I could wear them outside my pants, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
Fashion statement.
But I think the other part about it is, Darin, and again, I'm not trying to stir up anything here, but I came in today, and not only is he playing this really high-pitched song about a girl named Josie, but he told me that he couldn't find it, but his plan today was an Eric Cannon shirt. So I'm not trying to start anything. This is what I heard when I walked in.
Well, okay, first of all, I get it. I understand. To each their own. Whoever wants to wear whatever shirts they want to wear is totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
This may come as a surprise to you, but I actually own a couple pairs of or a couple Eric Cannon shirts as well, because when my car gets really dirty, I need something to clean it off with, and so I have plenty. And I don't want to use the same one, so I just constantly, rather than washing it, I just get rid of it. Sometimes it makes it in the garbage can. Sometimes it makes it in the street. It's whichever one works. Sometimes I give it to a passerby, a dog, just to see if they want to use it.
Yeah.
It's giving. It's what is it? Pay it forward?
Yeah.
Kind of like when I find something my ex-wife and I'm like, I got to clean something with
it.
Throw it away.
Well, Darin clearly just gave you a great option for a rag.
There you go.
Apparently those shirts can survive not only cleaning, but a bunch of washes, according to them.
And since you're cleaning a car, that means it can survive chemicals. So, that's incredible.
But I do have an MAW. We really support David.
No, that's fair.
Darin has wrestled for
I also, again, one of my last points, Darin, was I didn't want to mention it, but apparently Leroy recently had a tree issue in his backyard, and he recommended that they don't trim off branches. So, those could fall on things. He's got this thing about making sure that trees are as healthy as they possibly can be. I don't know.
Coming from somebody who last year lost their car because a tornado decided to bring a branch down on my car, I can't stress enough the idea of trimming trees, because I know what can happen in case you don't. But Leroy, just in case, as heads up, you can do whatever you want. Just make sure you park your car underneath one of those trees.
Oh, I parked my car in the garage.
Oh, he's got a garage, too.
I got a garage.
Conveniently left that out.
Okay. Well, in that case, I hope nothing happens where a tree branch were to fall on part of your garage.
Exactly.
Or a whole tree.
Yeah. So anyway, Leroy, now that we're done with the insults to our guest that you just for some reason had just lying around today, moving on here.
I would run the next time you're at a Darin Corbin event. Is all I'm saying.
I'm gonna
So,
wear protective clothing. To
yeah,
make
protective
sure.
clothing, a cup on the outside, cup on the inside.
Maybe put my son in front of me.
Yeah, your son will move. Trust me.
He probably would.
Anyway,
He probably would.
So, Darin, I mean, we obviously can't stress enough the obvious situation that has been going on in the world over the past year and a half. You obviously haven't been at an event. Do you remember the last event you were doing, or that you were able to do pre-pandemic shutdown?
Yeah, it was actually for First Wrestling when they did the Rosedale Mall. It was actually the last event that I did, and I did freelance before that. So I did freelance, and then it was came back and did the show at the Rosedale Mall. And honestly, like thinking about it, you know, I had a real well, it's crazy being Mania season, but I had a real crazy March planned as far as the next week after that. I was going to be I think I had 3 shows planned. I'm pretty positive. I was supposed to debut for a company in Kansas City. I was going to be making a debut, and then it was going to be actually my first Mania weekend in going down and doing a couple shows. And I think I was going to have 5 or 6 events lined up last year.
Oh, wow.
And then everything kind of went crazy. And so it's been over a year since I've had a match.
Wow, and I know you've been doing your best to stay ready in case something comes up, but obviously you've made the personal decision to not be a part of the I guess growing opening scene of the indies recently. Is that just kind of a personal choice, or was that a choice you made with like close people around you? I mean, like, what exactly led to you're not like ready to go back on, I guess, the full schedule that, I mean, you could do now?
There's actually a lot of factors, and it's a great question. And the thing is it'll probably be a more long-winded answer, but in the sense of where I want to go with it, I want to make sure that it's very advised that it is my personal decision and not something that I feel in a generalized statement, because I think everybody's different.
Right.
And there's been people who have been wrestling over the course of the past year, and I think that a lot of people, for whatever your personal and your financial situation, whatever, I think those are big factors. Now, I won't go too much into what I do, but I have a very in the meantime, I've always had wrestling is definitely a love of mine.
Yes.
And I have a job that I also love, and I also do, and it keeps me very busy, because I wasn't one of those where generally wrestling for me is mostly on the weekends. So a lot of times, like, even when I got to a stage where I was able to cover bills and start to do things all wrestling alone, I had a job because I just, like a lot of times, well, wrestling's unpredictable.
Yes.
For one.
Yeah.
And then following up on that, it was also really tricky because during the week I would just kind of get bored. I remember having some time off, and like relatively like certain times of the year I just got bored. And I ended up falling into a job that I really, really liked, and I've worked my way up and been able to do stuff, and I have that same rewarding factor that I get from wrestling in a different sense. And they've been great to me. But the thing was, is as the course would go on, if this was, you have so much talk about how long the process would be, the quarantine time, and all that stuff. And like for me, without wrestling, but to wrestle on occasion and have to miss like 2 weeks due to quarantine, would throw a lot of my financial situation off. So that was part of it. So I kind of, until I could make sure things were a little set there. I had a lot of family and friends who were also immune compromised, and while I didn't see a lot of people, or haven't been able to see a lot of people, the people I did, I wanted to make sure that I didn't run that risk. I would felt terrible if I passed it on to them. Mm-hmm. And then part of me, when I was watching shows, for the most part, a lot of the shows that I was seeing are kind of in a tricky spot, because I feel like for some promoters, you feel like you have to run and you feel like you have to do shows. Mm-hmm. But for me, I was watching shows with like crazy restrictions on them, like social distancing restrictions and limits to how many people would be on. And then that didn't even cover like if that area had a potential outbreak and something changed. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you have this plan, and like you're doing like one show, and then you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, or whatever the stuff was. And it just was so tricky for me to be able in my head to kind of like oh my gosh, I might as well just wait till things go back to normal for me. I might as well do my normal routine and kind of focus on things and try and do that rather than being like, okay, so I'll plan for this, but if I have to, what happens if I get it? Then I got to take 2 weeks off, and I can't do that.
Yeah.
And so, and so it was really tricky for me personally. So that's why I made the decision, and I went from wrestling every weekend, you know, to like the potential of only having the option to do maybe a handful of shows. So it was a little tricky, and I honestly would sit back and I thought about this, and for a while there was a time where I was like looking at shows that were happening, and I would on one hand think, okay, good for them, but on the other hand I was like, gosh, I couldn't imagine, like I don't really feel like I'm missing out on anything, because like a lot of the places that I would be wrestling for semi-regular, for example, like First Wrestling, Freelance, and then like FSCW.
Yes.
I wasn't really feeling like I was missing too much in that time, because like either they weren't running shows or the shows they were running were very minimal. And even on a couple of the shows that First Wrestling had been doing, you know, there's no, like, obviously you haven't seen me on those shows, but it's not due to a fact of like it's not any heat or anything like that. It's literally like, if you don't feel comfortable, this is fine, we're running, this is what we're doing, and like I've understood the perspective on the running, and
I think First Wrestling was they were pretty restrictive in those couple of shows as far as fans were concerned, weren't they? If I remember correctly, yeah. I think it's like I think the first, because I think they've done was it 3? And then
have they done 3 since everything kind of opened up recently?
So.
I think that's what First Wrestling's up to right now.
I think it's I think if you count the days, I think it's been. I think the third one's coming up.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Because there was supposed to be one in November, and then everything shut down again, so then they had to put it back.
Right.
But the way that First Wrestling does things, and like the photos that you see out of it, yes, everything's distance, everything mass, social distance. So like, for example, like that's why I get them running, and I get what it is, and there's such a void that I think it's good to have something to look forward to like that, and I think it is a good thing. And so it's just, for me, it just wasn't, I don't personally feel like I'm comfortable yet, and that was just the deal there. So like, but for companies that I see that are taking those guidelines and doing a great job with it, I absolutely am like, I totally get it, I totally understand 100%. And I think I just have to have a little bit of normalcy back before I jump in. But like, even I started thinking about it with things now, you know, when you do wrestle for so long and you wrestle and you see what's going on and you see what promotions are running, my deal is I at first felt like I lost a big part of like what I do, you know, because like wrestling is a huge part for me.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking of it differently, and like when things start to work again, my whole thought is, well, I guess this would work out in my favor, where maybe if I'm trying to line stuff up and trying to get out more and try and do stuff and like visit, you know, certain spots where there's like attractions I want to see. I've always wanted to go to different ball fields, baseball games, stuff like that. Food places that I see, and just having that option to travel more and line up stuff was something that I was really looking forward to pre-pandemic, because I had some stuff that I thought was going to be able to work in my favor with like FSCW, where they travel so much at different locations. So I was like, what if that was more of my regular thing? And that was a goal. And now that I see stuff kind of going back that way, it makes me more optimistic, where I'm like, you know what, maybe what if I do go to a place I've always said I wanted to go and just see where the scene is at that time for wrestling. And if so, maybe one of those for all the emails I get where it's like, hey, if you're ever in the area, we'll use you. Maybe we'll see if they'll put their, you know, actually follow up with their actions. So I've started to think a little bit different on perspective, and it has helped. But I've been in a really good spot, and the main thing what I've been telling people is, it's hard for me to complain about things. Like, obviously, I feel like I lost a big outlet on what I do. But it's really, it's hard for me to complain because I've been doing okay. And I'm just waiting till maybe a couple things fall into place before I can start switching my mindset again to how I was pre-pandemic and be like, okay, this weekend's open, what am I doing? This weekend's open, what am I doing? But I also might have found a couple different things where people who like follow me on social media know that I've started running more as a way to keep in shape ever since the gyms shut down. And actually, I've been looking into doing like 5K, 10K runs just as a thing, because down here in the Twin Cities, they have like a bunch of like fun themed runs.
Yeah.
A friend of mine told me about, and I was like, so I might look into a couple different things so I have some other hobbies. And then the reason for that is so I don't feel so one-dimensional. And kind of have other stuff going. So but that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, well, and that's awesome. So basically, the feeling that I'm getting, and we're not obviously trying to take the pandemic and politicize anything here on the show, but it's the wrestling business. I feel like it's always kind of imitated that. It seems like you didn't get a lot of heat for your decision. It seems like the wrestling business kind of was like very accepting, whereas I think news tries to demify a lot of the rest of the world. The wrestling world seemed to like understand where everybody was at.
Oh, absolutely. I never got any pushback from anybody at all. Most of the shows that I had were all canceled on behalf of the promoters feeling that they were doing the right thing in consideration to what the guidelines were at the time, which I absolutely respect. And I think, to be honest with you, over the past year or so, I've only had 3 different places really reach out to me in regards to doing shows.
Okay.
And all I said was, and one of them was obviously like the discussion I had, before with like First Wrestling. Just I said it ended with, you let us know when you're ready.
Okay.
And that was pretty much it. And that's fine. And I'll continue whenever I know when that time comes, I will. But I had 2 other places reach out to me, and I said, hey, just at the current moment, I'm not really feeling able to go out and do this. It's just not in the cards right now. And there was total understanding. There wasn't any issue there or whatnot. And I guess like my deal is as you kind of mentioned and kind of dropped it, I do feel like people try to politicize or take a stance on things. I just kind of it doesn't matter. Like, you post your thing and whatever, and you'll have somebody jump on it and make a total assumption because they want to hear their point heard.
Yeah.
So I actually dropped back quietly because I was like, you know what? When the time comes and I'm back, you'll know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, obviously with you.
Well, yes.
Yep. And when the time comes, I'll drop that and it will be there. But in the meantime, I stuck with doing Snapchat and doing video stuff because, and as you guys know, I focus more on Patreon stuff now too.
Yeah.
Because that's my outlet right now. That's my creative outlet. And it did bum me out especially when my hard drive failed and I couldn't put out new content. I was really kind of struggling with I was like, man, I can't win. It seems like this year I feel like I'm losing a bunch of like what I used to do.
I think a lot of us last night were like, with the rain delay of WrestleMania Night 1, we're like, is 2020 actually over?
Yeah.
Are we actually finished with this?
Half an hour
just
rain delay.
extending the year another 6 months just to make up for it.
Now,
ultimately how everything's kind of gone down, it's just like I'm kind of slowly abiding by the time. And then there's another part of me. This was the joke that I made with a lot of people, and it's kind of funny, and I don't care if it comes across as arrogant. Yeah, well. But shows were coming up, and you would see people being like, oh, we're going to wrestle again, or they were trying to wrestle through the pandemic or whatever they were doing. And, again, I saw a lot of people doing negative COVID tests and whatnot. Yeah. But I referred to it as, I said jokingly, I was like, well, this will be my WCW invasion angle.
All right, yeah.
You'll get everybody coming back, and they'll do the waves, and then you'll wait for the contracts to expire, and that's when you get your Goldbergs and your Stings and your Signers. I'll be in that wave when the time comes.
There you go.
There you go.
That was my joke, because
at least you're not owned by at least you're a free agent and not still owned by the overall parent entertainment company, not the wrestling company. That was the Sting situation.
Yeah.
And exactly, and the deal would be is like if I was getting one of those like Bobby Bonilla contracts, man, I would be totally fine with it, probably. But
that would be amazing.
Definitely.
I wanted to take a moment and be like, I'll let everyone settle in, let wrestling see how it works out. Once some of the hiccups are smoothed out, then I think I'm ready to come back. And so now at least we're in a positive where it looks like we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel. So now it'll just be a matter of when.
Right.
Yeah, and
And I think what's also great is your consultant was able to find work with NBC. Peacock.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
God.
I was actually. He's got friends that I just his random connections. Because a lot of people, like in regards, will ask me why do I stick with him.
Uh-huh.
And for those of you who have watched the show, you know that every now and then he, I guess he's like, for Twins fans, he's like Miguel Sano.
there
Every
we
now
go.
and then,
Yes.
He does strike out a lot. But
Yeah.
he'll hit a bomb every now and then.
Yeah.
And you keep him around because he does a good job.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he is passionate about what he does.
Have
That's
you
a big thing.
have you had to almost keep your phone on as a psychologist way for him editing all this content? Have you had to almost be his support system? Because I mean,
He actually got so immersed into it. I barely heard from him all week.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Because the last I heard is after we talked and did the last Snapchat, he was like, "I'm not even," he's like, well, however, his weird freaking voice that he does.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, he's like, I'm not even through all of it. And it's like, oh, okay, well, you let me know. He's like, don't worry, we're still on for next week. And I was like, okay, whatever you want to do. Sounds good.
yeah.
And
Hey,
I didn't hear from him until all right, we're still good for when we film normally here.
Is Bullhead going to be back on soon, or?
Bullhead's another one I haven't heard from. Last I heard, I don't know if he's immune compromised or if his wife's immune compromised. I mean, they're older, obviously. He's ancient as dirt.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah.
So I
He
don't
sends
really
you
know
letters, Darren. He sends you letters for crying out loud.
Trust me, he
Yes.
finds ways. There's always ways to do it, whether it's he sends letters or he sends my phone number, somehow how he got that, to set me up for mailing letters for things that I have no interest in, or as you remember in the ad when constantly bombarded with all those random text messages about which blah 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 this and who are you voting for that.
Yeah. So you're saying, that
many-
Bullhead got all that information sent to your phone. It wasn't just a simple political season. You actually had a slight Bullhead issue.
Oh, I listen. Ever since I started doing Snapchat, the biggest setback is I definitely have a bullhead issue. And I mean, it's been going on for years, and I truly do, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I really think that my consultant tried to bridge the gap and probably assumed that maybe if he gave him my information, he would reach out to me and we would patch things up. But obviously that hasn't been the case.
No.
So I
Yeah.
think it was actually my consultant who probably made the mistake of giving him the information.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to just be like, all right, we'll chalk that up as an L, but a very annoying L. Let's go with that.
Okay, that's fair. It's interesting, but I keep getting commercials on my Hulu for the Enbridge Line 3 issue in Michigan.
Yeah.
I may have to send someone out to see if Bullhead is causing that issue. Because why do I
You
care
never
what's going
know,
on in
yeah.
Michigan with with all that propane and everything? But I mean,
And I've gotten numerous messages from updates from the Dakotas and out in Idaho, and I was like, wait a second. Or it would be from something where I would hear, all of a sudden I would hear this note of oh, Bullhead would do this and blah 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 blah, and he used to wrestle in this territory, and then all of a sudden I get a random telemarketer message or spam risk message that would come from that exact area code. I'm like, coincidence or what?
Interesting.
Something like that.
But as my mother has told me for years, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. So, I mean, if the connections work, why would you go with somebody else?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's a perfect.
And again, he
situation.
does a good job. My consultant always does a good job. When he was recommended to me, it was kind of like, listen, it's definitely a getting used to period. You're gonna have to kind of roll with it, but trust me, the good outweighs the bad.
Okay.
That's what I was always told.
All right.
Yeah, I said I enjoy all the Snapchat you've done. My kids love them, and we talk about it all the time. And everybody that's listening, if you get a chance, find him on that. Find him on Patreon because there's some great stuff on there. Only $1. And we talk about it all the time. Only $1 to get into that.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So, and I want to specify a couple things because there's a couple. First of all, the Pro Wrestling Lounge has always been a great. A lot of supporters are in that lounge that have supported either Snapchat or Patreon, and the biggest thing is one thing I always want to make kind of clear on it is for Patreon especially. Yeah, the $1. As you guys know, there's a show that I do kind of on there, like a little series called For Viewers Like You.
Yep.
That is always available for the dollar Patreons. But anything that you want the exclusive content where you guys know I do like some behind the scenes talking about when the ideas come up or when those do.
Yep.
Those are for like the full library of exclusive content. That is always for the $3 and above.
Okay.
And then the benefits obviously that come with being a higher level member. So.
Right. And it's interesting. My lovely fiance, she's obviously big into the YouTube world, and YouTube has now dipped into Patreon a lot now. A bunch of people are doing that.
Yep.
Darin to me is still one of those people where like the constantness of the Patreon is even more of that of some of the YouTube people that do it. And so it's like I think if people are really looking for a distraction from their daily lives or at least just some good content, the volume that you put out, Darin, seems to also really keep people coming back and constantly engaged in what's going on in your career.
It's just really, really smart, the amount of content you put out as well.
Well, I always try and find ways to differentiate a lot of my social media stuff, and it for a long time, like here's been the hard part because like certain stuff makes sense to me, but in the same sense of with having a void with wrestling, it's been a little tricky. And what I mean by that is, for example, like Instagram's great to post snippets and snippets of videos and like a photo. When I was doing wrestling a little bit more consistently, obviously I was posting videos there where I would do like normally every weekday I would try and update something in there, something to kind of throw in. Twitter's easy. Twitter always seems like a live journal. Even still to this day, I can kind of do it and kind of go through. Facebook was always one that was a little tricky because like Facebook, I had my fan page where I didn't feel so bad posting a bunch of stuff there.
Right.
Because on your personal page or, whatever, it's kind of like, well, I have a lot of people who are family friends who don't really care about wrestling, but that's a big part of what I do. So where do you find the mix? But Patreon at the end of February, I thought about it because I was like, I was starting to think of all the stuff that I could do and all the like little things, and I wanted to try and attract a little bit more attention to it, and that's where I came up with the idea that basically every day, for example, if you were a $3 and above tier, at least there's a new post of some kind every day. And so as you guys know, there's going to be like, it could be a video, it could be a poll to kind of get people talking, it could be a Zoom meeting or a gift giveaway. But once I started doing that and kind of realized what I was putting my effort into, there was a lot of like little things that I was like, I can kind of diversify into there. And I wanted to reward Patreons as well for being so loyal during this time because it's been tricky, like without wrestling, like I would notice I would gain a subscriber here and there, but I'm not like out to do it. So I wanted to reward the ones who have always been with me, and a lot of people have. But I would normally notice that I would lose like every month I would lose like a person, originally. And my deal was I can't really blame people during a pandemic where it's like save every little bit that you have. But at least for the people that are sticking by, I wanted to reward those people, and I wanted to do stuff like that. And even in the conversation that we're all having, you guys even know that I've taken a big step back from doing podcasts because I only want to do podcasts and be a part of people who have been supportive of me because I do that monthly Q&A video, and for a lot of people, they ask me the same exact question basically every time. But even on something like this, you guys have been so supportive and have been a part and always make sure to like plug what I do. And so the big thing is I have no problem doing your guys' show, but also we talk about totally different things because you have the answers from there, and we can discuss some of the things and go more in depth. But I don't feel like we're doing the same repetitive stuff before, and that's been another thing that's been really beneficial. But I'm going going to try and keep that. I'm probably going to try and keep that going a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think I want to try and do every day. I want to do something daily, something a post.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think once wrestling does go back, even if it's sharing certain things like photos from, trips and whatnot that you can only see there, there'll be some good stuff that I think I can do. But it's been a fun, creative challenge. And like even this week, I schedule a couple posts. I'm like, okay, so what will I do Thursday this week, or what should I bring up this time?
Is there a plan? Or is it more like a bulletin board type thing where it's like you just have an idea up there and it's kind of a grab and go of like you have a bunch of stuff in the can and then it's just all of a sudden, okay, it's that day of the week, or is there a plan for like this specific day needs that type of thing?
So it's really odd because so the one thing I tried not to do is I tried not to have like every Wednesday I'll do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I started doing like the schedule too, to be like, hey, you should take a look and see what's coming out. And what will happen, or what I've started to notice, is some weeks I'll have some time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll film episodes, like I'll do like Reigns and Rankings, or I'll do another for viewers like you.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, I got this, and I got my behind the scenes, and then I can do bing, 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 bing.
Yep.
And I'll be like, oh man, I got all week planned out, and I'll put my schedule up because I'll be like, oh, perfect. If I do my schedule, then I can lead right in here. And, and awesome. But then, for example, this week, I have a couple things where I'm kind of like, I do like some Patreon polls and I ask certain questions.
Right.
And sometimes I have to wait for the outcome just to kind of see how I'm going to do certain stuff. Because, like, I did another 700 Club pick, and I wanted to see who the winners would be so I could know which videos would fall on what day.
Yeah.
So I got a couple things up this week, but the reason you haven't seen, like, a schedule posted is because I'm like, some of them are going to be interchangeable, and if I have to move one up a little bit, I could.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that so many people. Sorry to cut you off there, but I know that so many people have said that putting a schedule up helps them mentally be able to do what they're doing. But you seem like you've had such a creative boom in this time that you don't really need structure to stay motivated.
So what I do a lot of times is on my Patreon, without posting a schedule, I'll post certain I'll post something and I'll schedule it for later in the week, but it will be a placeholder. Like, so for example, if I know I'm going to put the behind the scenes video up, but I haven't filmed it because I haven't done Snapchat yet. Yeah. Then what I'll do is I'll be like, well, let's go with Wednesday, and it will just say like behind the scenes up there. So then when I get the actual video and I put it up, I just got to make sure I delete that one, so it's just not like random text that shows up.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I do for myself. But like every now and then I'll have like a deal where I'll be like, because I want to do more breaking news there, where like you get to hear it first, or you get to hear like explanations for certain things. And I always thought that was kind of cool. Like, and I've kind of like looked at what some, you mentioned like some of the YouTube community is broken into Patreon, because like I'm a big fan. Like ever since I started running, I've pretty much probably gained Brian Zane and Wrestling with Regret a ton of new like minutes and views, and I love his show. And then his Patreon, he does his stuff on his Patreon, and so like all the variety that you can kind of see what exactly people decide to do. And like a lot of them are like what is it, like sneak peek or early preview. And so I started to kind of gather some ideas from there. But a lot of times, like when I make my videos and I do a lot of stuff, it's ready to go. So it's like, well, I can't really do this and then I just do like a preview anyway that just kind of goes up on social media. So it's hard for me to like release something early, but I don't also have that schedule to like release early. So it's which is fine. It doesn't seem to be an issue for what I do.
No. So like, I know since we're talking a little bit about the YouTube game, I know a lot of like Let's Players will film for like 18 hours straight, and then they'll just have a bunch of stuff in the can. When you guys do your Snapchat sections, how many of those, I mean, like, is that actually at like one of your meetings is per episode, or are some of those episodes like one meeting that you and your consultant have?
So the way that Snapchat is normally filmed is is generally on Sunday morning.
Okay.
We normally have an appointment kind of scheduled for like, I would say late late morning, early afternoon.
Right before he has to probably do something with church, I'm guessing.
Well, I guess I'm a sinner in this case. So normally I film a little bit. I do that.
Yeah.
Now, depending on how because like sometimes we go off on some tangents, sometimes we branch off. And,
we know all about that here.
Yeah.
Occasionally, I see this. I mean,
sometimes the filming is longer than the editing and vice versa, because it depends on the way that it gets edited. Now, I like to do all my own editing on things, so like a lot of times it just kind of depends. Sometimes I'll get an idea in my head, sometimes I'll have something already.
Yeah.
So the next couple weeks I have pretty much a plan.
Okay.
But some of them will come to me either the day before or the day of.
Yeah.
And that's why I try and film it generally on Sundays and never really plan ahead. If I have something going on a Sunday, or when wrestling was going on, and I would have something going on for the weekend and I might not be back on Sunday, I would try and film like before I left or on the Saturday. And I've done that a couple times before. And the reason is a lot of times I might, especially now, I might not have an idea, or I might be unsure of where to go.
Yeah.
But something comes up over the weekend that's either wrestling related or something that would provide a good episode.
Yeah.
And so I might, like on Monday through Thursday, not have an idea and be like, oh man, what am I going to do? And then Friday night, something kind of either explodes on Twitter, and I'll be like, well, I guess we're tapping into this time.
Sometimes you just got to roll with the punches that come your way.
End of the week news.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed that wrestling news breaks almost like Dallas Cowboy news? It's always when there's nothing else going on in the wrestling world decides to blow up.
I agree 100%, and like that's the biggest thing is like I'll notice that a lot, and I'll see, and so like a lot of times too, it will get to even like the Sunday before the show, and what I used to, or the Sunday, it would be like the morning of, and I'll have like a couple ideas, and I'll be like, well, how do we do this? How do we have a good ending for it? How do we go about it? And the hard part is now is kind of what is. I kept doing it to do content, and I kept having it to do content and themes, but ultimately it was supposed to talk about and correlate with like wrestling, and it's just been so long since there's really been wrestling shows, and while they do touch base with the vernacular of wrestling, or at least the theme, I wanted something to come back, and I just kept getting more and more questions as far as like, hey, what do you think about this? Or like, are you on this show? Or, and it just seemed more and more, which led to this episode that I filmed for this one. And it's kind of like, it's hard because I still have a couple things up in the air and I still don't know, but also in the same sense, I wanted to make sure that it was addressed. And even like 2 months ago, I had to put out that video on YouTube. I didn't have to, but I felt like I did.
Yeah.
I put that video up on YouTube about just updating and saying like, I don't plan on that. This was my, I don't plan on that I had my last match. I don't think that I'm done.
Right.
I just don't know when my next match is going to be. And
Which
I
is
think
fair.
For a lot of people, when I put that video up and I played it, it got a lot of traction, and I got a lot of messages on Facebook and in the comments that were like, I'm glad you're not done. I was worried that you might not come back. And and again, a very logical thought, and because I don't have anything set in stone where I used to announce things and have my schedule posted, it was like, I guess it's been so out of the ordinary that I got to let somebody know, or let people know who might be inquiring. And I did get a lot of feedback off of it, which led me to think of, well, okay, tentatively, when can we kind of start seeing stuff? And with every announcement, it was like, well, maybe the option would be for like summer. And I was like, well, if at least I get people knowing that I'm planning on doing it and that I'm working towards getting back to it, at least people will know that I'm not completely like blowing it off. So that was my thought process behind a couple of those.
Well, I definitely think if you get on a show, we might have to do a road trip.
We'll definitely
just for that.
Mostly because I just want to do something wrestling related that isn't involved in just being in Leroy's kitchen. It's starting to smell in here a little bit.
Well, I bake stuff, so it sometimes smells good.
Well, yeah,
but then there's the garbage can. I know, I can't help that.
He doesn't take the trash out that often. It's very odd.
Hey, yes, I do.
As long as it's not like the Simpsons episode where they're waiting for it to tip over before somebody takes it out, then you're fine.
No, I'm not doing that.
He's not doing that. So, Darren, one of the interesting things that I think has come out of the pandemic of wrestling-related stuff is shows were thinking about streaming live without the fans in there, and then obviously the WWE came up with a Thunderdome idea that I think, regardless of how you feel about it visually, was certainly quite the revolutionary idea to sort of have fans be able to do that. They still won't let Leroy in the Thunderdome, which I don't know if that's a vetting process or if it's a picture.
I'm trying for Monday.
Yeah.
I haven't got an email yet.
Do you have to submit a photo for this first?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think what happened was all the women superstars heard what you said, so now you are an old dirty bastard. And
Yeah,
will not let you in.
no, I mean it's different times, Leroy. Different times.
I'm not going to say that I have connections with people who know how to do the ban list, but
that's
I also
fair.
won't say that I don't know people who know the ban list. So just a heads up on that.
Fair enough.
Yes, I know. You have some royalty, on the show.
Yeah, we know. But no. So I guess this might seem like a kind of blatant question, but I really haven't gotten the response too much of people inside the industry. What was the Thunderdome like when you first heard about it, and then how did you feel about it once it became kind of a daily part of our lives?
So my take is where I got. So I've mentioned to you guys that I haven't really been watching too much wrestling, or hadn't been watching too much wrestling lately.
Right.
And that was because I feel fans are such a big part of what we do.
Okay.
That it was very hard for me to, because like the way I condition myself, or the way I was always taught, is while you wrestle and while you do with it, it's important to listen and just, it's like you see what's going on, you work with what's going on, and the crowd might want. You're not going to get. I never believed in planning out matches.
Okay, because that seems to be one of those big things in the business now. It's kind of just like and again, not that I've spoken to anyone in it, but like a lot of the websites, a lot of people seem to be complaining. A lot of fans will be like, it seems like everything's so planned out now, but it seems like that was never something you were ever wanting to do.
No, and the reason was for it. There was two reasons. One, I guess three maybe. I don't know if my memory would be that good to memorize anything from start to finish. I don't think that I've ever done that. My take was, what if somebody got actually hurt and you had a whole thing planned? What are you going to do now? And I'm not going to like try and pick it out, but I think that was like a big thing when Alex Reynolds got hurt.
Yeah.
The match just seemingly went on around him, and it was like, it was uncomfortable. And again, it wasn't anything necessarily like it's not a knock on either company, but I mean, like in the same sense, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was shocked.
We've had a few things to say in the past about the whole Matt Hardy falling situation, but but like I said, we're not gonna rip on anyone for that. But it just seems like when you have a plan, you're so desperate to get the plan going because your mind is conditioned to that plan, and it's
And that was what was hard for me, and that was an issue that I had, was like what happens if you get hurt? Because I got hurt in a match, and like it threw off a lot of things just in general how the match was.
Yeah.
And that was just a basic whatever. But I blew out my knee in a match, and I was fairly early in the match, and it would just meant that I was teaming with Ryan Cruz at the time. It just meant that he had to take over the entire match. It was just all him.
Well,
and he did a great job with it, but like, I mean, ultimately you don't know. And if we would have been the kind of people who had everything planned start to finish, like what does that do?
Right.
So, but I always used to look at it as, you go to wrestling shows and you see the wrestling shows, and the important thing to me was always that the people in the crowd who paid the money to be there at the shows, they want to be entertained, they want to be a part of it, because it's one of the fun things where no matter what, like if you go to theater and you see it, and you know what you're getting when you go to see like Les Mis. You
Yes.
know exactly what you're getting. But here, it can be totally different, and it's such a cool variety. And I think that's one of the awesome benefits that we have. And I think some of my favorite matches are the ones that were like very based on what we did off the crowd. I've had matches where I wouldn't consider them to be anywhere close to a 5-star classic.
Yeah.
But I had so many people come up to me afterwards that were like, it was so funny, it was so entertaining, you guys made my kid laugh, blah, blah, blah. And all we did is, like, you'd have one guy that would be, like, chanting to drop an elbow, you know, be like, elbow drop, and then everybody would be like, drop an elbow, do an elbow. To the point where finally when the elbow drop hit, people went nuts. And
I mean, I don't know if I should be proud of this or not. I actually went to a Ring of Honor show in Hopkins, Minnesota, and I'm proud to say that we kind of, from the moment Ken Anderson decided to mention the Green Bay Packers, we decided we were going to take over that whole show, and they actually had to change referees because we wanted Todd so bad that they were just like, well, the crowd's not going to let this match go on. We're going to send Todd out there. So, I mean, it's, you know, but so basically you're you're listening for the one dude who yells "Freebird" at a concert, is what you're saying.
Well, I kind of like to listen and see who's getting the attention, and like sometimes like a crowd will be quiet and you can pick out the one dude, or you can also just kind of look at it and be like, well, what do the majority of the fans seem to be going for? And I think the tie-in here is to answer your question is also I think that's why you started seeing a lot of like WWE shows get hijacked by the fans because for so long the matches were so geared to, and similar now, they're geared to the audience at home. They're geared to a Thunderdome like it is, or they're geared to or they're geared to the people at home because the people who bought a ticket, they're there.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you're trying to bring in, and this is actually something I've heard from somebody there. You're trying to get the people who are at home to watch the millions of people, because there's millions out there, that when you come, so in Minnesota, they see you, but they're watching at home in Florida. So when Florida comes, they buy a ticket and they go. That's who you're trying to get in the door.
Right.
But I think because the matches are geared for the TV so much, it's like a TV show with wrestling attached, that people would do the beach balls and would hijack, because it didn't matter if the fans are doing the wave or chanting CM Punk or whatever it was. The match still goes on just like it does. And that's why when like Cesaro goes into the crowd and rips up a beach ball, you're like, that's awesome. He actually acknowledged it.
Right.
And it's because you don't see people do that. And for a while I was watching, and I watched before the Thunderdome happened. Okay. I watched
Performance Center empty arenas, basically.
Yeah, I watched an empty arena, and I watched AEW, and then I started, and at first I was kind of like, oh my gosh, these shows are going to go on whether there's fans or not. But it's weird. Like, nothing changed.
It was.
Yeah. But like, and then AEW, like, they had like some of their guys in the crowd watching, and while they were making noise, I was like, okay, that's cool, but like, again, similar styles that they run. I was like, okay, yeah, they'll still do their stuff.
Yeah.
And I think what I started to notice was that I don't know if the crowd had seemed like such a non-factor in how the development of a show went for so long, but it really took me out of it for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so now I've been kind of getting back into watching a couple things, and like why I was watching so much old stuff is, I set a goal to watch all the WCWs that I had missed from the time that I stopped watching.
Right.
But like watching old stuff and watching crowds, like I actually have been watching WrestleMania 18.
Oh.
And
damn
of course, I just got to Rock Hogan.
Right.
And like,
we were just talking about that yesterday.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
There's technically nothing move-wise in that match that you have not seen before. But like, I think watching it just last night, I like that match so much more now than I have, even knowing that I like that match, the previous however many times I've watched it.
Right.
But I think it's because I'm like, that crowd made that match so special and because I haven't got to see full crowds.
Yeah.
So, like, the thing is like I said, I haven't really been watching too much, but of course I've been staying up and, like, keeping with what's going on in Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And that little GIF that shows up that's of Bianca and Sasha, I know everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Yes,
At the beginning of the match.
yes. Mm-hmm.
That moment, to me, that's what wrestling is. Because, like, they get to share that moment of how important that match is, and you can see how much it means to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Without a crowd or without the acknowledgement of a crowd,
Right.
It takes away from everything that could be so good about it. And just that clip that I've watched, I'm like, thank God that they got to actually have that moment to play it up.
Oh,
and that's
100%.
why for me, that's why it's been tricky to kind of watch certain things because, you know, again, we were always told on the indies is like, you build the house, you get people there, and like, you guys tell friends and they bring friends, and then the first show may have been 50, but by the end of the year you have 200, 250, or you're at a bigger venue.
Yeah.
Like when I started at freelance was small, and now they sell out Logan Square. And so, like, to watch wrestling and be like, oh, no, guidelines here make it tough. So, like, no matter what you do, certain venues might only be able to have 50 to 100 people.
Yeah.
And it was really hard for me to be like, oh, I've always been conditioned that you try and get as many people in, but no matter what, it's gonna top. And I did have a hard moment where, like, you know, while success is success for whoever, and I would never wish ill will on any promotion, but like when you see promotions that you work for that do well with the guidelines, and you're like, well, I'm not on the show, and I guess, I mean, like, it didn't make a difference. They still sold out. You know, like, and I think that's just like I think it's a part of your mind that works when you don't have wrestling. You know, you're just kind of like, well, okay, it will be better if I'm there. But, you know, for now, the time being, I think if you are and now to answer your question on the Thunderdome, if you are a $1 billion company and you get to create something visually as spectacular as that, by all means, please go for it.
Right,
because that is a cool visual, and I think being able to do that, not every promotion could do that even if they wanted to.
Right, yeah.
So I think that was a cool thing, and they were the only ones doing it. So I think that was a great thing to do to separate themselves, because at least you had people showing interest in wanting to watch the product, and I thought that was good.
Right. Now, you know, it's interesting. I kind of came up with this while you were mentioning about, you know, the crowd giving you the idea of where to go. You know, I'm not going to mention any real names, but I've kind of, you know, we've talked about on the show now, going back to guys sort of planning things out. Nowadays, and again, I'm not necessarily taking a shot at anyone in particular, it seems like that, you know, so many wrestlers today, it seems like they have this idea that they have to go with stuff that got them over in a certain, you know, we'll say territory type of thing, this and that. So basically, you know, to me, I feel like a lot of matches, and I'll throw any company that's, you know, that's come out in the last couple of years in that mix, a lot of guys seem like they're wrestling as almost like a greatest hits of their past and everything. And it seems like every time I've seen, especially you on a card, you've always tried to not repeat something just for the sake of repeating it. Do you think you're at that point in your career where you need to start becoming a bit of a greatest hits, or is that not ever in your thought process? I guess the best example would be everyone expected Shawn Michaels to eventually do the body slam, nip up, elbow into the super kick. And, you know, I mean, like, so is that ever something you wanted to become, or I guess?
It was actually always in my head as the opposite of what I always wanted to be.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked that question, because my thing was, now, first of all, I say this with every aspect of this. I wrestled Scotty 2 Hotty like back in 2007.
Okay, yeah.
Wow.
And Scotty had a match that he knew, and he was like, if I do this and these 3 things, people will like it. And it wasn't always the same match. It was just the order or where he would do or what he would try and get in every match.
Yeah.
And he told me those 3 things, and he was so good at doing it from all his years of travel.
Yeah.
That when he hit those 3 things, the crowd, I wrestled him in front of a crowd of like 100, and it sounded like there was like 3 or 4 times that.
Wow.
Because he was so good at doing it.
Yeah.
And when I talked to Scotty afterwards, he was like, yeah, eventually you get to a stage where, like, you give the crowd what they want. And I thought it was such a super – and it was easy for him. It was an easy night for him, and I thought that was great. And so I kind of wanted to find a halfway point because, like, I know some guys have – like, you see their match, a lot of people will be like, you've seen one blank match, you've seen them all.
Yeah.
You know, like, insert whoever it is.
Yeah.
Well, I always wanted it to be, I thought wrestling's biggest attraction was what people do with who they're in. And my best example that I can kind of give you now is, like, for example, in the past couple of years, like a Nick Gage when he's against somebody who's not, like, a deathmatch guy.
Right.
Or a gimmick. And like Suzuki when he would come to the States and you'd be like, I want to see him against Moxley, but last year he was supposed to be booked against OC, and it's like, how is this match going to go? Yeah. Those were the things that I always looked at, and I always thought to myself, I don't want to ever have a Darin Corbin match. I want to have a match where it's like, it's the two guys, and you're like, that match was good, not Darin Corbin's match was good. And I wanted to wrestle dudes that if you saw our matches anywhere on the card, you'd be like, they deliver every single time. It's not, if you went to see me wrestle in Duluth, but then came down to the cities and saw the same opponent, you'd see the same match. I don't, the running the circuit doesn't really apply to me anymore.
Right.
So my thing was, I always am thinking of different things to do and creative stuff. Cause like, I used to always think of it as TV. You wrestle for a promotion, they see you wrestling on TV, whether it's John Cena doing his, like 5 moves of doom or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, for the thing for me was when John Cena, when it was shoulder tackle, throw the crappy punch into the protoplex.
Yeah.
Like, the moment that somebody turned or changed that up, in my mind, I was like, people went nuts because you were used to seeing that. But like, I remember when he hit it, went for the 5-knuckle shuffle, and Punk like kicked him in the head.
Yeah.
And everyone lost their mind. Like, that's the thing. It's the unexpected. It's whatever. And even in a sense like that,
it's the monkey wrench of wrestling.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the monkey wrench of wrestling, basically.
And good news for you, man. I don't think any one of your fans or anyone who's ever seen you wrestle, and they've seen you way more than I have. But in the 4 times I've seen you, I've never seen a bad Darin Corbin match. So you've set quite a high standard for yourself, good sir.
And again, a lot of my and first of all, thank you. I
no
do
problem.
appreciate that because that's what I try and do. But I always would like to think that, for example, it's all relative to the show that I'm at, which I think is important of listening to, because to me, some of the stuff that I see, and like, granted, it works, and I know that guys are a draw, and I know that guys get booked places. And I'm like, good for them. That is great. But that's not the kind of style that I like to do, and I'll wrestle mine. Because if I'm on a show with those guys and that's what they do, I don't want to do what they do. I want to do what I do because it will be just naturally different by default.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So then in my head, like, when I see what's big and what's popular and what's over, and like, again, I bet off the top of our heads, we could all list 3 things that you're like, oh, I'm so sick of seeing these at shows. Well, if I were to go to a show and I end up, because for example, I used to do shows up on the Iron Range a lot, and it was a very old school fan base.
Just a little bit.
The Rangers are pretty funny.
Man, I wrestled like 25-minute, 30-minute like Broadway draws.
Yeah.
And but I didn't do anything, but the crowd was hot. Like, stuff that it was easy. Like, people were mad at me for, like, basically beating up on the dude's arm or leg the whole time, and they wanted to, like...
It's a lot like Canada. It's a lot like Canada. Bizarro world up there, It's pretty close.
And so, like, my deal is I'm not going to go up to, like Floodwood or Hibbing, and I'm not going to try and have a match that I would have in Chicago because the crowd wouldn't care. And ultimately, if the crowd doesn't care for it, then I don't think it's technically a good match. And, like, I think what you're saying is kind of in agreement here, where I think the feeling of going viral and getting booked, or the feeling of, maybe if somebody sees this clip and gets booked, that the short game is they see me do this and they bring me here. But ultimately, I've never cared about that. I still want people to feel emotion and still people to feel that, the dislike and the light and everything. And so, like, that's why sometimes I'm vocal on certain things. It's not that I hate, like, a certain wrestler, but, like, if you see me wrestle that guy, I'm not going to wrestle that style of the match. I'm not going to do that. So, because that's not me. And why would I change what I do? You booked me to do this. So why? You know?
Yeah.
And I guess.
Is part of that the idea that at the end of the day, you do have to be a little selfish and think about your own future bookings with the same territory?
A little bit, yeah. Because I've had a couple spots where I've been very consistent for numerous years, and I think it's easy to grow stale, especially nowadays, but I also think it's a challenge to, like, change yourself up a little bit. And, like, the story arcs that I've had, a lot of people know that one of my favorite story arcs that I've ever done is with Paragon, and I outlined the whole Paragon deal, but I did like 3 different major fun angles the whole time I was out there over the course of like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So in my mind, like, if I would have done the same exact thing for 3 years, it wouldn't have been great. But you got to change yourself up and be different because, I mean, also too, it's short-term memories, a lot of fickle, like, it's quick. It can change so fast.
See, I think one of the interesting things, Jesse over here is a big New Japan guy, and the one thing that Jesse will always talk about is when you talk about, and I'll just go right to him, the Ace, he's a guy that he's been called the Ace now for ever.
20-something years.
But he seems to be the least stale person there.
Yeah, it's like Darin was saying, he constantly, the last 20 years, you will not, if you go through all of his matches, you will see implements of the same style, but there's always a lot of new wrinkles to the story.
Well, there's a style that you wrestle. If you're in Mexico for 20 years, I think the prime example now would be a Santos Escobar. Is, Santos Escobar is lucha libre royalty.
Yeah.
But when he got to the States and he goes to a different company, the Florida area now, and obviously in NXT.
And it kind of has to now wrestle more of an American style.
And exactly. And it's like you see someone like that who can take the mask off and basically throw away everything that he built himself on.
And what's crazy is he might be better now with implementing both styles and putting to bed for now his lucha libre match. Than what he was, 10 years ago in AAA, and Lucha Libre Federation.
Well, but like Darin was saying, 10 years might get you paid for 10 years, but what, is it going to get you paid 5 years later?
No. You got to, like Darin was saying, you got to stay absolutely fresh as much as you can.
Have you ever run the circuit, Darin, as you say? Was there ever a time in your career where you were, like, kind of wrestling the same basic thing for, like, let's say a couple of months or, like, a year or so? I mean, have you ever actually done that?
Similar with, I've had definitely certain, like, sequences or spots that I've thrown in.
Okay.
But I've never really had the ability to, like, wrestle the same person that frequently, I guess, to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I've had, I guess, on a very brief, I have had it where, like, I wrestled somebody on a Friday, and then we ended up in the same match on a Saturday, and I was kind of like, oh, it would be a good thing to do? That thing that really got a great reaction on Friday. And then we kind of just kind of feel it out and go for it. And so I guess that's kind of the closest thing.
Okay.
But, like, I think with the emergence of a lot of, like, like live streams and, even still DVDs and whatnot, I think it's kind of easy. It's kind of easy to still spot people who, or actually, I should say, just in general, places put their stuff up on YouTube.
Yeah.
I think it's very easy to be like, oh, I was watching this match that Darin had. Oh, let me go click on, like you're going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And here you click on it, and you're like, oh man, so I watched Darin do this, and then you click on my match here from a different state, and you're like, oh, he kind of does that same thing. I mean, it's very easy to spot the same thing.
Right.
But, like, that's also why I like to do, like, that's why I like to do, like, specialty matches. My favorite style stuff is, like, basically anything from, like, WWF 1990, 2000 pay-per-view, like the crazy hardcore brawls, that stuff. Like I love deathmatch wrestling. I really enjoy. Like that's something that people don't know about me. Is like I'm a big fan of watching it, but like I'm one of those where I'm kind of clumsy, and I would probably be the guy who would take like a light tube in the artery, and that'd be it for me. Yeah. But I love watching it when it's done, when I think it's done well.
Well, you know, recently we had Cal, a buddy of ours up here. He was on the show, and this was one of the, this is the first time we had him on the show. He actually was like, I'm not a big kind of deathmatch guy, and we actually pointed him to CZW. I don't know, I haven't followed up with him on that, but I've always said they've been able to really do that type of style where like almost everybody on the card for many years, they've really been able to do a really good job of actually making it so that it's not just, hey, this is beating each other up with light tubes. There's a real sort of artisticness to what they do down there.
I saw, so like for a long time when I broke in, what happened is first of all, the funny thing about me too is there used to be and anybody who's kind of in the Minnesota area might know of this, but there was a kiosk that was in the Mall of America on the 3rd floor that had tapes, and it would like, they would sell RF videotapes, they would sell a bunch of tapes, and it would be like New Japan and Big Japan death matches and old ECW fan cams. And that's where I got introduced to CZW, actually.
Okay. Wow.
And I was a huge fan of like, I was a big fan of Amazing Red, the SATs, the Briscoes from CZW. And honestly, Amazing Red was one that gave me a lot of hope to actually to go in to get trained, because I was like, here's a small guy with red hair who is doing cool stuff. That gives me hope, because I always thought you had to be like over 6 feet, over 220, like whatever it was.
Land of the Giants.
Yeah, I'm about to say Land of the Giants.
But I was like, here's a small guy doing some cool stuff, and
I don't think he'll ever get the credit he deserves. And I'm speaking of Amazing Red. I don't think the modern audience. I mean, yes, obviously, as Darin pointed out, you could go back and find old stuff that he did. It's all over the place. But like, I don't think anyone's ever gonna realize that probably his biggest exposure on TV was when he was in the old TNA days.
The old NWA TNA days,
Yeah, exactly. But the guy did so much for the business.
Yes, he did.
He's I mean,
I feel everybody, like every indie wrestler in some way, either if it's a disconnect or a 6 degrees of, every single one of them is influenced by what the SATs, Red, Quiet Storm, Brian XL, that crew, like all the guys at Whipwreck helped train, I feel like have influenced people for, like, they changed it. They changed everything for people. And so that, I was a big fan of those things, that style. And even when I broke in, so like I knew, I was a big PWI reader, so the things I read were like, I knew of IWA Mid-South, and I knew of CZW, and I knew of Chikara, but like when I broke in, that's right when Ring of Honor was getting started. So that was the switch. But my thing is the first time like I ever went out to Chikara to do Tag World, I was like, oh my gosh, I know these guys. I know all these guys because I read about them. The first time I went to IWA, Ian Rotten actually commented on it because I sat in the corner of the locker room talking to Bull Payne all night because I was a huge fan of his death matches that I had on my tapes at home. So like he was like, he messaged Cannon and he was like, so your student's a huge Bull Payne mark, it looks like. 'Cause I just talked to him about death matches the whole time. And then I would watch all the deathmatch tournaments and like the CZW Cage of Death and like all that stuff. Because then as I started traveling more, I started to be in similar circles as a lot of those guys. And so like that was always kind of an influence for me, but it was also something where I thought it was so cool, again, going back to it, when I would see guys who, like, for example, Eddie Kingston, who would do all sorts of different styles.
So much respect for Eddie Kingston.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I guess based on your fandom of deathmatch, do you have an opinion on the popcorn fart that was the barbed wire match for AEW, or
that's what we're gonna be nice and call it that? Oh my God!
I mean, have you seen that ending yet?
So I haven't seen the whole match.
Okay.
I've obviously seen the end.
Everyone's seen the end.
AEW did recently put it on their YouTube, so if you want to use their YouTube as another launching pad for yourself, feel free.
Yeah.
So my take on it was, I thought the two guys in the match, if you were going to do a barbed wire death match, exploding ring death match, with the exception of like Joey Janela, I thought you had two of the right guys in there to do it.
Okay.
Well, that is kind of where Joey's cut his teeth a lot. You know, I've always said on the show, I think one of the things that gets lost, and again, as much as I've ripped on Joey, he has impressed me on Dark.
The bad boy.
Yeah. No, he has impressed me when he's been given an opportunity. But once again, I feel like one of the issues is that, and I mean, I'm not saying they're doing this, but it seems like they brought him in because he was a name, and now he's getting pigeonholed in a place that really isn't what he's good at. Yeah. I'm not saying he can't do it and he can't consistently.
Like I said, there's been, he's definitely improved recently.
He's done well on Dark.
Because Sonny Kiss is a hell of an athlete. And to be honest, Darin, have you guys ever met or wrestled at all, you and Sonny Kiss?
No, we were supposed to, actually. So the thing that was really hard is actually right before AEW took off, I was supposed to wrestle Sonny at Freelance.
Oh, wow.
Okay. All right.
Oh, man, what a great match.
I was so looking forward to it. And the thing is what happened was, I can't remember exactly, but Sonny couldn't make it. I couldn't remember if it was travel issues that were coming up or something.
Okay.
But Sonny messaged me to be like, I'm so sorry, I can't I was like, it's okay, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Hopefully down the road we'll be able to do it again. And it was either travel issues or it was the opportunity for them to do something really big came up.
Right,
and
okay.
then when it got rescheduled, I was already in like a feud. So then when Sonny came back, they were against Eye Candy Elliott.
Okay.
But right at that time is when the announcement came that Sonny was getting signed to AEW.
So,
again, couldn't be happier, but like that was a match again that fits into my wheelhouse of, you've probably never seen a match where Darin versus Sonny on paper, that match will be different than a lot of different matches that I've had.
Oh, so it would have been. You two would have came up with something special, I'm sure.
So,
definitely looking forward. I was looking forward to it, but before your next question here, going into it, the thing with the end of the death match is where I was a little like, oh, come on. It wasn't because of what happened. It was literally because the company obviously has a lot of money to make something happen. That something could have happened with a safe, like a safe way to do an exploding match to protect everybody.
Yeah,
I mean,
because you're taking the chance on doing it. I was kind of shocked that that's what happened.
I was the guy who said, if you look at especially Onaida's matches over there. By the way, those are classics for anyone that wants to watch.
I'm a huge fan.
Oh my god!
But but the thing is that when you looked at those matches, they were not only outdoors, because Daly's Place is a slightly outdoor venue, but Jaguar Stadium was a stone's throw away.
Yeah, and I agreed with Zach that I was actually shocked that they just because they only do 20% capacity in Daly's Place.
It wouldn't have taken that long.
And it would have taken nothing
Jaguar
to go
Stadium.
ahead, do a video thing.
Yeah.
And that way the fans can move over. You could just do it right there in Jaguar
But
Stadium.
it was like last night with the weather issues. They basically probably got on the headset and called 4 or 5 of the wrestlers last night and were like, "Hey guys, you're gonna cut a promo while we wait for the weather to pass." So it's like, I feel like going back to Darin's point about the budget, you could have found a way to move everybody to Jaguar Stadium.
Yeah.
And here's the deal: it's not like the Jaguars are doing anything on that stadium until until preseason. So
until October,
if the grass gets burned,
are they
you just
really
change
doing
the side.
anything now?
Trevor Lawrence, AEW confirmed. Two more weeks.
That's exactly it. Is I was kind of shocked that if you knew you were going to take the chance and do the match, that with that much money that you have into putting it, I feel like you could have done something. Or if you knew or were worried about it, why not just make it a cinematic match? That, but so that was my take on it.
Okay.
The stuff in the match, at least by the clips I've seen, the two, Omega and Moxley, obviously are the two right guys to do it.
I actually was not mad at the match itself. They actually, both of them, and what was so unique, and I think what's lost even in the WWE NXT teaching style is they really didn't immediately say, "Oh, that's gonna blow up. I'm gonna throw you into it." They kind of worked towards the explosion.
Well, like I said, Moxley kind of comes from that background. So, because so Darren, you probably have way more information about Kenny than I do, and I know Kenny's kind of a student of the game by like fifth hand nature. People who kind of know who he is. But I thought Moxley was the perfect person for the match because he's used to that world.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. And like I said, we kind of ripped apart the ending. We didn't rip apart the overall match.
Yeah, no, we didn't rip apart the overall match.
I mean, I do think that when they jumped into the, one like barbed wire board that was on the floor, and there were just straight up explosions that looked like a circus act. That again, I think going back to Darren's point, I just feel like you had so much more opportunity. And it's more of a shock that you didn't pull it off as opposed to what was pulled off.
Well, and like like Darin was kind of saying, it's one like me and you kind of talked about it. It's one of those things. If you have two billionaires backing you, there should. I don't understand why there wasn't more maybe tests, anything like that. Because remember, this match was only like a month or two ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Jaguars aren't playing in that stadium until October.
Well, that was the thing.
I always make the joke it's October because they always lose in September.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's one of those things like why not give it a test first? Not with the actual wrestlers, but with the production company. Because afterwards it kind of blamed the production company.
If you singe the stadium floor,
you
have to resod that thing before each home game anyway. It's not like your grounds crew doesn't know what they're doing.
Right.
So I mean, that I guess is a really good way to do that, to look at that. So kind of sticking with AEW, what exactly, regardless of anything anyone has said, us very much included in that.
Yes.
We've always given them credit that they had an idea, they ran with it, and by God, a year on TV is still a year on TV.
Almost 2 in October.
And I mean, how do you even plan for the fact that your first full year is a pandemic basically? And you still found a way to stay on. Is that one of those sort of Disney ending like situations where like there's hope in the indie scene, or is it just kind of you guys saw it happening because of who was involved? I mean, like I guess I'm trying to say is it so storybook Disney like, or is it you guys are still somewhat hesitant about it?
Well, I think the moment that things switched, and I've kind of noticed, especially looking back at it now, people I've talked to who are either on the indies or have definitely worked for or around different promotions, or maybe maybe they did a job match here or had a little bit of a moment where they do extra work, whatever it is. I think the optimistic part was when it came around the first time that before AEW was a thing, and they sold out the 10,000. Yeah, they did All In.
Yeah.
I think that's when people were like, and then when they got the TV deal, even though you were kind of like, oh, cool, like obviously TNT, but we're gonna have wrestling on TV. I think the main thing is it wasn't. I think for a lot of the guys that I talked to, a lot of the wrestlers that I cross paths with, the attitude isn't so much like, oh yeah, finally somebody's gonna take. I think the thing is, oh, there's options again.
Okay.
Like you don't, and I think because when I mentioned when I started.
Yeah.
I'm right. So I started in 2004, and we're still reeling from the loss of WCW and ECW.
Right.
And Ring of Honor is starting, and TNA is around.
Yeah.
And I feel like TNA has always been what it is. You know, and like
They just survive, don't they? Like
they're on life support, folks, but they've been
well,
on life
I
support
don't even know
for
if they're
a while.
on life support. They just, those guys they survive.
But that's the thing. People have been saying that about them for like 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is it. They'll always have a spot, and like they've given options to a lot of different promotions too.
Yeah.
So my thing is AEW got a little bit more attention onto the national scene, and clearly before the pandemic, you saw guys that were getting signed to major contracts or re-signed to major contracts because, like we talked about, just have them in the farm system so that they don't go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, what was it? Jericho said the day he signed, everyone not only got extensions but raises up there.
It's possible.
I mean, like, the thing that was hard for me, another part about it, is I watched when they did all the releases during the pandemic. That was tough because I was like, didn't you just sign a bunch of talent and then you release them during like the worst time to release when there's nowhere they can go? I thought that was something that I was like, oh, well, maybe when things go back to normal, I'll just think about myself rather than trying to get a contract.
Right.
But I was watching now, even they're signing again. Obviously, AEW has Dark, and they're trying to build that stuff up. So,
Elevation's now a thing.
Yep.
Elevation too. And they're giving people opportunities, and they're building things up. And obviously, local scene, like the idea that we have, Airwolf and Dorado there, you know, like that's great. So my thing is I think when contracts start to come up, you know that there will be at least the opportunity to test the waters. And I think the thing is that will help people make more money. That will ensure that people have a job.
Yeah.
And then also there is like the weird spot that's kind of like, I think it's allowing promotions to establish themselves a little bit better.
I know. Well, I will say this. I think that just the existence of AEW has given MLW the biggest, sort of, national coverage they've gotten in a while.
MLW, I think the bigger one for MLW is the fact that when AEW decided to do the Impact thing, which, like I said, I just personally haven't liked how it's turned out so far.
Teach their own.
But that's helped MLW quite a bit. And they're a good promotion. Also, another one, another one that will hopefully get some growth out of what's happening is NWA. That they're finally coming back. Corgan's finally doing shows again.
Yeah.
No fans, of course, but Corgan has almost been like Darin Corbin, where he's just like, I'm protecting my wrestlers. I'm not doing anything. I'm sure I can do something.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that will help, the other promotions and things of that nature. Because WWE isn't going anywhere.
Right, yeah.
No, they are not.
And it's interesting you say that. So, Darin, kind of back to this, going back to when your contracts are up, there's sort of, I guess we'll call it almost a bidding war. Is there kind of the idea now with the fact that AEW has gone strong that, guys are now looking at WWE not as the childhood goal, but as something that I'll do at some point in my career, but it's not as like I need to do it suddenly, instantaneously?
Well, I think what it's done is it's given people an option where, like, what your before when I broke in, I was always told some of the best advice I ever got was the way that it was worded to me was you should always try and make the most money that you can in wrestling because it's a business.
Yeah.
So my thing is the way I took it is I never in wrestling, if I never got signed to a WWE contract, I would never look back at everything I did and look at it as a fail.
Okay.
And that was from day one.
Right.
So, like, it was hard to tell people that you don't want to wrestle for the biggest company in the world, but it's also tricky to be like, if WWE was like, hey, here's a contract, I would be foolish not to sign it, especially if I don't have anything else on the table.
Right, exactly.
So I would give it a shot and go. But like, even my mindset still would be is like, well, if I had a good run for like 2 years, maybe I can follow up somewhere else and ride a wave on the Indies again, and blah blah blah. So my thing with AEW is, what if your goal was that you wanted to wrestle on TV? Okay, well now there's multiple places that you can wrestle on national TV.
Right.
What if your goal was, when things go back to normal, you want to travel with a company and wrestle in arenas? Well, now you have another one that you can do that.
Yeah.
What if you want to wrestle with some people that you consider some of the best in the world and have made the most money doing this and could get you to, like, what if you wanted to go to Japan and you could get in connection with Japan? Now you have a company that can do that.
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that, that's what I think gets lost is, regardless of what you feel about the product that's actually been put out there, it gets lost a lot of times that a billionaire is funding a company that is on weekly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, it's one of those things where, like, I mean, we were talking a while back, Darin, about The Rock purchasing the XFL, and I'm actually of the opinion that I say give it 5 years, and NFL purchases the XFL and turns it into a league where those 45 to 53 guys go play, put tape out there for training camps, and then they can maybe work to get an NFL contract, and then when that's up for the 1 year deal, guys are can still go put tape out there for the big wigs, but there's a place for them to do it. I say in 5 years, The Rock is going to have an offer from the NFL to be like, we're going to use you to sort of give teams options, for when free agents, because I mean, like, honestly, if they move the season slightly, it'll end right around free agency. These guys are out of their XFL contracts, and all of a sudden someone comes calling.
It sounds like Dwayne and Danny would like to just simply they would like to keep the schedule that Vince already had.
Oh yeah, no,
which is to do it during NFL's off season.
Well, you're not going to go against the NFL when it comes to their actual time of year,
and they're still keeping a lot of football people there. So when they come back, I think you'll see. Well, because I mean, the league was good before the pandemic hit. Like, they were getting better numbers because the football was actually really, really good.
They were average. Well, okay. I mean, Darin, I don't know if you ever saw the 30 for 30 of the XFL that ESPN had. I think what they basically proved was the only problem was the quality of football.
Yeah.
And if you have guys who have played in the NFL or are just coming out of playing in the NFL and they're backups, so they're not getting 1,000 snaps a season. They're getting maybe 120, and then they go play 500 in the XFL. There's still quality football there. You still get someone that can do what they're doing. So I'm not saying it's a developmental as much as I'm saying it's just putting more tape out there, and then some NFL team will come call it.
Yeah, and like the other thing too is like, so when I started wrestling, my thing was I always wanted to be a wrestler. So my take was I just wanted to travel, see the world, and have fun. And then people always will ask me on the side note, so as I'll tie this back together, they would always go, well, isn't your goal to make money? And it was, well, if I made $50,000 a year or $150,000. The deal is, if I made $50,000 getting to do something I always dreamed about, and I get to travel and see the world, and I have money to do what I want to do, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely with that. Now, if I have $150,000, that just means I have 3 times the amount of money to do what exactly I want to do.
True.
Yeah.
But in the sense of like with football and the XFL, I think the biggest thing is yes, having options for guys, and if they really wanted to play football and they really wanted to do it or have an option, like you said, they have a spot where they can get tape, or they have a spot where they are able to do what they desired to do. And in the case of wrestling now too, the way I've always brought it up, and it comes across as the most negative way to look at it, but it's one of the best ways when somebody finally worded it to me, because I've always thought about it. And I was like, well, not everyone who goes is happy to like the big stage.
Yeah.
And I thought about people who have won or been the top of the mountain in any sport, and then you hear of how tragedy strikes, you know?
Yeah.
And the deal is when people are like, if your goal is to main event a WrestleMania, yeah. If your goal goal is to make a lot of money, yeah, you probably want to go there. But like, there are guys who have made $1 million,
yeah,
and main evented or been at WrestleMania, and they've committed suicide. And
right.
the deal is they were obviously not happy with the situation that was going on, and whether that's depression or mental health issues, I think what it was is a pressure to try and think that this was going to correct your behavior or correct your mindset, or that this was going to fix things. And obviously with everything we know, that this is definitely it. And like, for example, when people went on, had a hard time with Lesnar, like, not everybody is built for being on the road that many times a year, especially if you're family or whatever. So the idea of AEW having a more relaxed schedule is easier on your body and easier on your like mentality of being around like family in your free time. Yeah. And you're still able to make a career.
Well, but that was also the point that I've always tried to make to people is when you get into a situation, and wrestling's the prime example, if you are a star, get paid for it, but if you can also be a star, get paid, and basically pick your schedule, in the case of Lesnar, who would turn that down?
And he really did become an attraction to himself thanks to his UFC stuff.
People are mad at the guy for doing something that they would take up in a heartbeat. Yeah. Going back to Darin's comparison, whether Brock's making $500,000 a year or he's making $3 million for 6 months, you take $3 million for 6 months. It's I mean, if that makes any sense, Darin.
It does, and like the other thing too is like a lot of people don't consider, like, if you're 21 to 25. And, like, it's just you, a life on the road is cool. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're, like, in your 30s and you have a family, it's not exactly the same. And, like, that's why when I was, like, I think of some of the trips that I even did and some of the road trips and, like, some of the shows that I did, or the ability to pick up and go, which has changed over the past 10 years. If I were to do the same thing, and I learned, thank God I learned this easy, the biggest thing was I was working in college, and I started wrestling actually my freshman year of college. So I would be going to class and wrestling, and then I had a job so I could make some extra money. But I would do some shows in Chicago, do the show on Saturday. We would close the bar, and you know me, I don't drink, so I would hang out. Yeah. And then we would leave at 2 a.m., head back, drive 7.5 hours, and I would sleep in the car a little bit, and then I would have to work at 11 a.m. on Sunday at my job that I was working doing retail.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to hate wrestling because I'm going to be like, wrestling exhausts me. I'm doing this show, and this, I can't do these trips anymore. But when I was younger, absolutely. But if I were to still be doing that and, like, driving 7 hours just to work at a job that I don't really want to be at anyway the next day, I was like, oh my gosh, no, I can't do this. So I had to change the way my mindset worked. But before, when it's like I could do that, I didn't need to worry about it. Absolutely. And that's, I think, the other thing that changed, and even in the sense of every other, like other sports too, like your dedication, your season, your training time, your prep time, your pay for that, what pros and cons outweigh. And I think we're learning that some people put a different emphasis on other things. And even, I mean, like, going into the sense of football, like Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
He retired early, quote unquote, but like probably the best thing that he could have done for himself.
Yeah.
The Colts did beat football out of him, though.
Well, I mean, you can talk about ownership, you can talk about this, but the truth is that when I saw Andrew retire, he wasn't in football for that long, but even though physically it was the same guy, I didn't see the same guy who got drafted that said, I'm retiring. So much had happened in his life. So much more was on his plate than when he was a 22-year-old coming. I mean, people don't understand what can happen in 6 years. People, I mean, to relate it to wrestling, it's kind of the same thing. 83 weeks, bada bing, bada boom, we're the best thing. And then one thing happens, and the next thing you know, that 83 weeks seems like it literally went nowhere.
Which is why I do believe in the fact that it doesn't sound like WWE, even once things go back to normal, will be planning on hitting the road that much ever again, because it's what it sounds like is so there was this discussion that apparently they had a couple of months ago with the wrestlers, including some of his older wrestlers like Roman Reigns, who will now have no plans on going on the road like that ever again.
Yeah, exactly. Roman's in a completely different spot.
Yeah, there's no way in hell he's got 4 kids. Like, it's not happening.
Right.
I think Vince understands, because plus the house shows were losing him money anyway.
Yeah.
So I think there's an understanding now. Maybe AEW helped Vince to realize this. Yeah. Is that, you know what, if I can put on the best Raw, and NXT talent usually stays in Florida anyway. So
exactly. It's interesting. NXT is one of the few places in the last, probably for me, 20 years where I don't hear of a lot of them living anywhere but right there in Florida.
They all live like right in the vicinity of Florida, so like they're all right there.
They're all a good 2 hours away. Yeah, so, at probably the farthest.
But Vince, it sounds like besides Raw and doing SmackDown, that he's not gonna have them do too many house shows anymore.
Yeah.
And one of the big things, maybe between AEW and what Triple H had been doing for a couple years already with NXT, where maybe once a month they would hit the road.
Right.
Otherwise, because especially for what Corbin was just talking about, for those guys, especially in the Indies, they still have normal lives to go back to.
Right. Exactly.
And hit the road like that all the time as you get older, it's taxing. I'm sure of it.
Do you think the business, Darin, is at a point where the companies have to make a decision to change from being, it's like, I guess I'm going to reword this. Are we done glorifying being on the road 300 days a year?
I think that element of that number, that amount.
Yeah.
I feel like is more of a badge of honor for a lot of people, being like, oh, people couldn't do what I did.
Right.
That's kind of, and again, it kind of goes back to it, like, within reason, there's always a couple outliers to it, but let's face it, like we were talking about it, Lesnar. If Lesnar can make $1 million to wrestle one match, and somebody has to travel 180 days on, like half the year to make $1 million.
Yeah.
Well, it's not Lesnar's fault or it's whatever, but if you want to brag about it and be like, oh yeah, you couldn't do that. Well, right. His interest isn't in being on the road all the time to show how tough he is on the road. His interest is making money.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think there's been a lot of stuff that has been, there's probably too many to even think of, or I would think of them later.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of stuff that was like ingrained or, put in my mind that people would say that it was like, that's just how it is, or that's how the business is. And I learned that changed because, like, in my mind, I was like, wait, why does it have to be this way?
And
I've had a couple conversations with some people, but it was like, some people would be like, initially, like, we're road warriors. Every weekend we're doing this, this, and this. I was like, oh, good for you. Now, for me, I actually like being on the road, and I like traveling and getting to see things. So, like, that's just a perk. That's not like something where I'm like, oh, you guys couldn't do what I do. I like driving. I will get in a car to travel. I will do that. But I also would love and prefer to fly if I can. So if a promotion gives the option to, I'm probably going to do that.
Right.
But if I can line up a 3-day weekend and I have to be in the car for, 24 hours, but I have 3 shows in 3 different spots and get to have fun at all 3 of those shows, I will do that as well.
Right, okay.
But my thing is like, I think where I've grown is if you tell me you want to do certain things, but you're not willing to put in the work to do that goal, I think you're full of crap. So, like, if you tell me you want to go to the places I want to go, and you're like, man, I would love to be on the road with you guys and go to freelance, but every time the option came up to go to Chicago, you had something else you'd rather do, then I'm like, no, you obviously don't want to do this.
Yeah.
It'd be the same thing if I was like, I have this conversation with my friends all the time. If I were to ask my friends who are like really into like bodybuilding and weightlifting, and if I were to ask them for advice and never take it, I would expect them to get super mad at me.
Yeah.
You know, for like all that stuff. So like in the same sense, if I was on a show and somebody, you know, just again, if somebody was like this, that, and the other thing about size or whatever, but my goal was, if somebody was like, I want to be the biggest jacked guy on the show, and my goal is I want to be in good shape so I can wrestle for 20 years, that's two different goals.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not going to brag to him about longevity. He's not going to brag to me about his size on those shows. We got two totally different goals in appearance.
Exactly, obviously.
So I think, like, some of the stuff that people bragged about doing were, you know, like, again, I think I've had this conversation with somebody who's been really he's been like a mentor for me, but the idea of that if you sacrifice enough, you deserve things, and the more you sacrifice, you deserve more than somebody else. And it's in the same sense of insanity, is if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, that's just exactly how I see it. And so like there was times when he was like, it's okay if you make a sacrifice once in a while, but don't keep doing it. And like I would see guys who were not conditioned to break out of that rut. Yeah. And it was like the same thing where I was like, I've had people come up to me and ask me to watch their match. And right before the pandemic happened, I would always, because like everyone always asks me like, did you see anything? And I'd be like, well, yeah. I mean, like, from my opinion, you know, and you would talk about it, and then you would realize that like they just wanted to hear they had a good match. That's really it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So what I started doing is when people would come up and be like, can you watch my match? I'll be like, what? I was like, yeah. What specifically do you want me to watch for? And if they would tell me, and it might come across as me being a dick, but if they were like, well, I just want to see if I'm good or whatever, I'd be like, when you kind of figure out what you want me to like look for, let me know. And because I'm not gonna waste my time.
No.
Yeah.
But if you were like, I was like, if you want me to watch and see if you are, if like
hitting a spot,
your strikes are, you know, like, do I look like I'm actually, how are my punches?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay.
Well, then I can watch your match specifically and see in relation to what you're doing. But like most of the time, I always got like the but and this and the other thing. So like for a lot of young guys, like I kind of realized that they were just looking to get a critique on their match in the sense of me telling them it's good. But also, like, I think you should only ask me what I think of your match if you want to be doing the same things that I'm doing. Therefore, my advice can help you get to where I'm at. So if you're like, Corbin travels a lot, I want to do what Corbin does, I'll ask Corbin. But, like, so many people, it took me a while to figure it out, but I was like, well, if I'm on a show with 6 guys doing all the same stuff, I got to do something that stands out.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people are so stuck in their ways that they won't do that, and I think that's a hard part. So yeah, it's just, I think like the mentality of it's hard to break that when you're instilled, you know, because I think you think you're going to get. I think you're gonna get heat if you're new and you try and like do all this stuff that people tell you, and like there's a difference between being respectful and being like understanding of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
There's also a big difference in the same sense of being like, oh well, I mean, that seems kind of outdated now for what I'm looking to do, because even in the sense where I've been talking about with people who have done Twitch and streaming and Patreon, like, if I can make quality content and make money on that, why would I travel 10 hours one way for blank amount of dollars, 10 hours back, when I can sit and record something for 2 hours and make this much money? You know, like, so things change a lot, and I think that's a big part of it. And I think a lot of guys will wear it as a badge of honor, but I've always said that if you are supposed to be respected for what you've done, people will take notice. So, like, for example, if you're like, man, this guy travels a lot, he's been doing this for like 15 years, you'll take notice.
Oh, yeah.
But if it's somebody on the other side where you're like, they're telling you they've been wrestling for 15 years and you don't know who they are, probably not somebody you're going to listen to anyway.
That's a very, very good point.
Darin, before before can you indulge me real quick, because we talked a little bit about WWE, and I found some old footage of you as a bouncer getting beat up, and what is the story behind how you got to get that spot, and how that worked out and how you felt about that?
Actually, I'm going to stop you really quick. So, which time are you referring to?
There's been a couple of times, huh?
To be fair, we're gonna take out the times that his online medical school training has helped him help legends to the back. We're gonna,
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
So I believe,
I've done extra work.
I want to say that there was a spot with you and DX, and was it? I think it was.
DX.
I think it was DX. And you were coming out to kind of help the McMahons and or be the bodyguards for the McMahons and the Spirit Squad, I believe. And you kind of got beat up a little bit.
Actually, that's not me.
Oh, son of a gun!
Okay.
Son of a gun.
So the things that I've done while I've only done extra work 4 times. And the first time I ever did anything there was 2017.
Okay.
So the first time I did it, I was security for a Sami and Sami Zayn, Samoa Joe pull apart.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
The next time I was there was when I did the medic stuff for Kurt Angle.
Medic stuff for Kurt. I'm gonna have to look this up. When was this?
TLC.
Oh.
There was also a night where Darin gave some wonderful, encouraging words to, I believe it was Jerry the King Lawler.
Oh, yeah, that was my last time I was there after he got beat up by The Fiend.
Yeah. And then before we move on to one more thing, what was that fourth moment?
The fourth one, actually, when I was back, so technically the fourth is the next night on Raw. I did the same thing as a medic for Jason Jordan.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
All right,
When Elias hit him with the guitar. But the third time I did extra work, I actually didn't do anything on the show except eat catering. So which I'm fine with.
Yeah,
but,
That's a bonus.
Yeah.
The funny thing is some people confused. The reason I asked is because some people confused this segment that happened. I was there, but it was actually Scott Story got beat up by my brother. Baron threw him into a bunch of
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's who you saw.
That was the other one I was
yeah.
thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So all right.
The clip is so fast. The clip is fast that people thought it was me. To which I tweeted out that night. And if he hears this, I think he'll think it's funny because I tweeted out that night. I said, the worst part about this whole weekend is that people confused me for Scott Story. And that was what I. So it was actually. So what happened was I did the segment, and I was a medic, and it was right before Raw, and what happened was I was talking with Story, and it was like 5:30 or maybe even 6 before Raw started, and he turned to me and he was like. He's like, they're probably not going to ask any of us to do anything today, are they? And I was like, dude, they asked me during the pay-per-view to be a medic. And he was like, and so he's like, okay. And I was like, well, here's the deal. If they come and ask for anybody, yours better be the first hand that raises.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
About a half hour later, one of the guys ran back and he was like, who hasn't been a medic yet? And Story flung up his hand.
So wait, was there a sacrificial lamb to your brother or something? Was that kind of the plan?
Honestly, we had no idea because that's the thing. Stuff just happens and you have no idea what's going on, and they'll grab you and they'll be like, okay, we might need you for this segment or whatever.
It's live television.
It's live television.
It's live television. All right, so
legit.
Yeah.
The last time, I think it was TLC again, the one where Roman or I think it was where Roman beat up everybody, the entire Minnesota indie scene.
Yeah.
So I wasn't there.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, so they don't need me. And at 4 p.m., my phone got blown up by almost everybody I knew that was associated with producers and whatever. And we're like, could you be at Target Center in an hour? And I was like, for what? And they're like, we ran short on guys. We need more guys. And I was like, because normally you have to do like a physical to make sure that your blood work's good.
Yeah.
So I said, I was like, I don't even have up to date blood records. I mean, like if you want me to show up, it would be I'm not up to code for all your stuff.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Because since you're messaging me the day of.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But like that's the thing, like something will happen and they just go through with it.
Okay.
So like that's just how it all goes down.
All right.
So like and the funny thing is like when the segment came up,
yeah.
they were doing, because it was a SmackDown Invasion, is where they had Story get beat up by Baron.
Yeah.
The deal is I was just standing there as security, and somebody ran over to me and they were like, "You were a medic yesterday, right?" I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Come with me." And I was like, "Okay." So like you just get pulled, and they're like, "We need you for another segment." I was like, "Okay."
All right.
This is how it works. It's you just are there, ready to go, and just in case they need you, they need you.
All right. So obviously this is Mania weekend. Not necessarily to talk about night one just yet, but Darin, before we let you go, you've obviously been going back in time. We mentioned earlier, and for you, what are your favorite? And it's about as generic a question as I can ask. I mean, do you have an odd WrestleMania moment that you love that other people may just kind of scoff at? I guess is the best way that I can word that.
Not in the terms of your question, like probably not, because people will be like, in a sense, agree with me. But like, the things that stand out to me, for example, are like, here's a good example. So, like, people ask you, what's your favorite Mania? What's one of your favorite moments?
Yeah.
And, like, really the thing that stands out to me, like, the most is because when I got into wrestling, we didn't get pay-per-views, so, like, I didn't get to watch, like, WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But, like, the first Mania that I ever really got to see, happen live was 14.
Oh.
Okay.
All right.
And that's when, like, not being there, but, like, actually getting to watch on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But, like, that was kind of, like, a perfect climax of, like, the Attitude Era, Austin winning the belt, Michaels leaving, me getting to watch wrestling, me getting back into wrestling, and then all of a sudden being, like, a global phenomenon. Like, because I was watching mostly WCW at the time.
Right, obviously.
And I kind of checked out of WWE from, like, 95 to, like, 97, I think would be safe.
Okay,
and I started picking back up, and, like, I started watching kind of like summer of 97, and I watched like the build, and I watched everything go down, and like things were exciting again. So like that era of like 98 really stands out to me.
Okay.
And I've always been a big like, man, that pay-per-view kind of like switched my gears again to being like, oh man, I want to do this because wrestling was like hot and popular, and we liked wrestling, but like there was so much influence on it.
Yeah.
But like things of like Mania moments that I really enjoy are, I mean, obviously I like Rock and Hogan. I always said that. I mean, that's an obvious one. But like, I love sleeper matches, or like matches where you're like, A, sleeper matches, or B, matches where you're like, people are going to talk about this for a while.
Yeah.
Good example. The like first ever like TLC or the ladder match, the Hardys, Edge and Christian and Dudley's.
Yeah.
People are going to talk about this, One of my favorite matches from Mania ever is like DDP versus Christian from 18. I think it's so underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so good. But like, my thing with Mania is the ability to pull out all the bells and whistles, and like, you can do this on the biggest stage of them all, and you can have cool returns and all that stuff. So like, certain things for me that stand out in that same sense are just like, I guess I don't really ever look at the main events, like, a funny way of things that are memorable to me is I couldn't tell you, other than the fact that people hate on it because they're like, it's such a bad Mania, is, the one where Cena and Miz main evented. But, like, the video package to me for Miz is, like, amazing. I think that's the best thing of the entire Mania is, like, that video package. So, like, stuff like that is, like, Mania moments that I remember. But a lot of them are kind of from that Attitude Era. From 14 up till 20 is kind of where I'm like, oh, yeah, this is great.
Now, this might be a question you may have gotten before or not, and it'll be one of the last ones that I ask you here. do you have a memorable Mania entrance? And the reason why I ask is because you were talking about people are finally getting backed with a billionaire's dollar. Mania is like Wrestle Kingdom in that the company's giving you the chance to finally show off because they put you on the card.
Yeah.
Is there an entrance that sticks with you at all?
The one to be humorous is the Godfather and D'Lo Brown, where Ice-T is just saying like "pimpin' ain't easy" over and over again.
Yes.
That's not here nor there.
No,
It's just like, oh my God, how many times does he say it in this song? I think the givens are always like. I think that was always the thing I looked forward to with Taker.
Yeah,
it was always the big thing. I mean, like. Yeah. You can kind of look at any Taker entrance, but like I think the most influential one, because it's always kind of funny, I still actually laugh to this day anytime this happens to me, and I will continue to laugh to this day because part of me is so ingrained in wrestling. But the moving walkway that he had where it looked like he was floating.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Every time I'm at the airport on the moving walkway, it makes me think of that, and I laugh every single time because I'm like, I'm getting my Taker entrance.
Yeah. And at the end of it is a bomb-sniffing dog. What? Anyway.
Which is a little different than Mania normally. So,
slowly. All right, well, before we let you go, Darin, we would like you to possibly look into our current sponsor, Haitian Heat, if you haven't heard on the show, is our buddy from up here, Al Sands. He's a local boxer. He came up with his own hot sauce.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff for it.
Yeah. He is available on Facebook, Haitian Heat on Facebook. He's working on getting an Amazon store. If you haven't heard, it's a hot sauce specifically developed for when he's in training camp, so it is a healthy-based hot sauce. And, even his base sauce, which is actually not the hottest one, it has Ghost, Reaper, and all those hot peppers in it. That's the base sauce.
Correct.
See, I'm not very good with spice. Cajun is pretty much my main topic. Now, I'll try anything once unless it's like basically ghost pepper extract where I know like my tongue's gonna fall off.
No.
So I'm always down to try something.
Well, okay, so what I would recommend to you is I would go to Haitian Heat on Facebook, try to order. Okay. Jesse's done it a few times. Mm-hmm. Just get the base sauce, and what he basically came up with was a sauce where the heat isn't instantaneous on your tongue, but then it's gone about as fast as it hits you.
Yeah.
So what you're actually going to get is the natural fruitiness of all of these peppers, and that's the lasting effect. And I know that you don't necessarily drink, but the way I always describe it is that if you want really the only long-lasting heat is going to be that little tickle in the back of your throat like a fine whiskey.
Okay.
Type of deal. So, obviously,
damn good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, not we steal this every show, Frank's Red Hot, but we do put that shit on everything.
Literally.
But no, I mean, I would recommend if you were looking to try something that would be good for you. And like I said, it's good for just about any form of meat and veggie type thing that you want to do.
Even fish.
And if you're in the middle of possibly preparing for a wrestling comeback, we're gonna have to stay tuned to the next Staff Chat episode. It'd be something you could definitely try, and maybe your consultant would like it because we all know that he likes to dabble in some interesting situations. But we would like to not only plug that for Al, but also possibly have you try it, and maybe if you could suggest it to a few people, that'd be great because we always love to support him and everything that he does.
Okay.
But anyway, so that's Haitian Heat on Facebook, and I guess the only way to end this is, Darin, we got a few things to get to for Mania, but thank you so much for this. It was truly a pleasure. We will have you on down the line here. We'll possibly get in touch for some live stuff down in the future, depending on how the situation works out. Please stay safe. Love to you and your family.
Absolutely.
And just hey, we're gonna be watching Snapchat. Hoping to hear from you soon. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yep. Have a great day.
Take care, Darin.
You too.
Man, that was a real pleasure.
That is, no. No, that's an unbelievable situation. And what I think is so unique for me, Leroy's going to be, thanking Darin for us off camera here. But what I think is so unique for me is Darin has said numerous times that he can sometimes ramble.
Yeah.
I love when someone with insider type stuff just goes off, because you're going to get a nugget out of it.
Yeah.
And that is something that I just absolutely love. And I'll honestly say, I think some of the best things we've ever done on this show was we had a topic, we had an idea, but then we turned around and just out of nowhere, we got on some tangent, and we're in a completely different universe, but it was great. It worked. And we got some good content out of it.
Absolutely.
So, I'll be thanking him a little bit later, obviously, when we're all done. But no, great to hear from him. And I think what's really unique is people seem to think that because so much goes on in wrestling, guys aren't really willing to do this kind of stuff. But that's kind of the thing, and I hope Darin would be able to pass on to other people, is that when you come on the show, we're going to let you say what you want to say.
Yeah, you're free, man.
Occasionally, we're going to ask, a question, and if you don't want to say anything, if there's something going on, we're perfectly fine with that. But the thing is that, as many people have said, Eric has said it before, he is one phone call away from the Bucks. Everything I've said about these guys, if I could somehow get them on the show for 20 minutes, I will take whatever.
Let them kind of defend themselves. Yeah, no, I would love to hear from them.
And that's and see, that's the thing is, like I've said on the show 1,000 times, and I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself. But the thing is, when you look at a guy like Colin Cowherd, he probably his top 3 biggest things that he hates on is Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook in basketball. Baker Mayfield's probably a big one.
Baker Mayfield until at least late last year.
Yeah, and then his third one always is a fluctuation of people.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that people need to understand is that he is willing and able to say, the couch is always here.
Oh yeah.
The phone line is open. Yep. Anyone is able to come do this.
Yep.
And that's the thing, is that hopefully Darin can go, leave this thinking to himself and saying to himself, they let me come on. I got to say what I want to say. It was a good time. And, Leroy and I can speak to this after the first interview, which is available now on our YouTube page. Everyone should go check that out.
Definitely go check that out.
Is Darin told us directly after our first interview, and that's why I think I kind of stumbled over a couple of questions there, especially the Mania one, is he said we asked things he wasn't used to. And it's like, Look, if you're the first time on a show, they kind of expect you to ask, when did you start this, that, yada, yada. I feel like Leroy and I, and Leroy, you were obviously there for the first interview, and we've kind of put that together mostly in the car on the way down, as I always explain to people.
Oh, yeah, winging it on the way.
Yeah, but exactly. But, Leroy, if you remember the interview, which obviously, again, it's all on tape, but when we asked the questions of his origins and all this other stuff, we kind of just gave him the floor to say what he wanted. We didn't really want a cookie-cutter answer from him.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't at all. And it's that I just, finished up talking with him and thanked him, for being in the show. And he is looking forward to going to a show eventually, And then I told him, I said, we can move, we can go mobile, we can do this again. He would so much like to get on and do another show with us.
He left us some
phone
stickers.
And live.
By the way, we should take some of the stickers that he gave us, and we should slap one onto a nut cup there for you, so we at least know who owns your lower regions.
Because the shot is coming.
Oh, yes.
well, if we get to a show with him, if we get to a show and I'm able to do that, I will. I literally, I will take pictures and post it. Okay. But I will do that
of the cup, not yourself, right?
Oh no, I will take pictures
of
the cup, and on me. I'm scary. Yeah, people will be scared.
Just a little bit.
But I will walk up to Darin wearing that.
All right, fantastic.
And you have to record the video on that.
Yes. I would
because
be happy to.
It will be.
I would be happy to.
It will be priceless, and I don't know if Darin will be able to handle it or maybe fall on the floor.
Usually, I will let you go forward, but we actually had some breaking news while we were interviewing Corbin.
Yes.
And that is fine, and we're going to get this up online right after this. So yes.
Apparently, if you're not following me on Twitter, it sounds like Kota Ibushi will be the next challenger for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship.
Which is some big news.
Which is monstrous news.
Because, once again, wrestling opening doors.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I think people have to understand is that WWE, they don't need anyone else. So while I believe Triple H and he says our doors are open, I think people have to realize they need it to be right for them. And I think because Billy was gone for so long, it doesn't hurt for him to immediately work with New Japan.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if you're WWE and your reputation was never put on hold for whatever reason, you need the right business to be there for it.
Sure.
So, anyway, so, I mean, Jesse, my biggest question to you is, you obviously know the history of NWA. I know the history of NWA. Leroy does.
Oh, yeah.
What would Kota Ibushi, how does he fit into the NWA?
Wow.
Because here's the thing. He is New Japan through and through.
Yeah.
Now, but here's the deal. We've talked about on the show, New Japan was always more shoot, where Baba, over there, he was always more...
Baba Inoki.
Baba Inoki, but Baba was always more NWA style, whereas, Inoki always wanted to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So how is Kota going to fit into a style that he's not really used to?
So what's good about Kota Ibushi is that he's also worked in American style before. He's also, because it's not just the Cruiserweight Classic he did.
Yeah.
Well, man, it doesn't feel that long ago, but I think that was 5 years ago now, which is insane.
Sometimes like that happens, and it's like, really, it's that long, and boom,
it's just like, oh damn,
like
5 years has
boom.
been gone. But he's also worked for Impact. He's also worked in MLW, so working in American style is not new to him. I think what it does, especially, and I don't know if he'll win. Nick is an incredible champion.
Oh, I do. I love him as a champion.
He was a reason that when they originally came back to YouTube like that people really re-engaged, because Nick is just he's got a big personality. He's incredible, and he holds himself up with such class that the NWA deserves.
He reminds me a lot of the old style.
Yeah.
Like how Flair was and how they were back then and the way they are. He has that mystique and that
he also did work
character,
for NXT during the Cruiserweight Classic. And,
I brought that up.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why I bring it up is because they really did want him down there.
Oh. So it was so the funniest story
he signed a lifetime contract with New Japan, because New Japan was like, we're offering you permanent stability so you won't leave.
So the funniest story he tells is that Triple H wanted him to go meet Vince, and he goes to meet Vince, and Vince has no idea who he is. and apparently, so Triple H, so Paul gives him a call before he gets that lifetime contract from New Japan, because Triple H wanted him there. And Paul goes, so he's now seen a lot of your matches. He knows who you are. Kota Ibushi working with the NWA, and by the way, he's 38 years old. Doesn't he look like he's still 25?
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
like he's still
25. 25. He looks like he's 23.
Like he's like internally young. I don't know what's going on with him. I think he drinks the blood of unicorns.
He must.
But
he must. He must.
But after not defending the new championship, which I don't blame him, if he's gonna kind of consistently now work with NWA, one, it now really opens up the doors of New Japan working with Americanized companies, and two, if he wins, that's huge, because it doesn't matter what promotion of wrestling fan you are, you know who Kota Ibushi is. He also worked in AAA for a while when he was on Excursion.
Yeah, exactly.
So in Mexico, they know who he is.
I don't believe there has been many Japanese stars that has won the NWA. There's only, I think,
I think there's been
one
or two, so he would be second or third ever.
So it's not like he'd be the 11th or 12th.
So
he'd be up there.
This is huge news.
Yep.
I don't know when it's going to happen, but I do know this.
Yeah.
Billy Corgan, depending on when he wants to set the date for this, is going to sell a large number, because that's just the match itself, Nick versus Kota, is going to be incredible.
Yes, it will.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. So, what I love about this is every time that we seem to have someone on, we have some breaking news. Al broke a fight while he was here. You're breaking this. It's an ever-changing world.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I mean, once again, folks, look, I mean, we have Darin Corbin. We've had friends on. We've had random people that we've just met. We've got some guys in the PWL who we only know through Facebook who we will gladly have on.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, folks, once again, fan-based podcast. I mean, if you want on this show, you literally just have to contact me or Leroy, and we will get you on the show. We will find a way to make this work. I mean, Jesse will attest. We were talking to Darin through a phone that was hooked up to a microphone.
Yes, that's what we were doing.
That's all it was. So,
and it was incredibly engaging.
So, anyway, Leroy, we are obviously now at the point where we need to discuss the biggest news in wrestling, which was WrestleMania Night 1, and we will be previewing Night 2, which we will cover the whole WrestleMania card tomorrow. Yes, that's right again. We have 3 shows, 3 days. Before we get into it, Jesse, Night 1, was it worth the hype of 2 nights?
Yeah.
Because I know for you, Wrestle Kingdom's been 2 nights now for a while.
It's been for I think 3 or 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And people are always wondering, does Night 1... I mean, because obviously the biggest things are Night 2. Everyone's just going to know that by default.
Yeah.
But did Night 1 live up to the same billing of the show?
So I will say this, for WrestleMania period this year, they have not done a great job in their builds. But when you looked at the match cards...
Oh, I woke up this morning saying to myself, today more than yesterday, it feels like WrestleMania. That show brought the feeling of WrestleMania back. And maybe it was because we finally had fans again.
Yeah.
But I felt like this morning was... I woke up and it was WrestleMania Sunday.
And it's one of those things, well, like I said, I didn't think the builds were great, but when I looked at the matches, I went, man, that's going to be a great match. That's going to be a great match.
Yeah.
I will say 6 of the 7 matches in one very particular celebrity match were way above what I thought they would be.
You know,
yes.
You know, so Leroy, we'll do the typical just run down the card here thing, but I think the one thing that we just want to get out of the way, because we want to really get into the hype of WrestleMania, the tag team turmoil seemed a bit odd to me.
So that was the one
just
where
go right to it.
I discounted it.
Yeah.
So... Number 1, clearly...
My pick won, by the way. I want to point that out.
We all picked that.
I think we all ended up picking it.
Yeah, we all did.
It's one of those things where I think they ended up rushing it because... So right now with Peacock, they are on a timestamp. Which whatever pay-per-view they do, they are on a timestamp.
No, yeah.
And they have to finish at least 10 minutes, otherwise...
They got all the matches in.
Yeah, and
I felt like that
Peacock
was the
will
one...
cut you short.
Well, but, you know, the thing about it was, for me, though, was that I...
Because of the 40-minute rain delay.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, once again, folks, we just talked to Darin about all the... adaptation he had to do in 2020.
Yeah.
As much as I feel bad for the girls that were involved, I think they still got the intended results.
Yes.
Which is all that at the end of the day probably really needed to come out of that.
Yeah.
But you know, Gene was saying how that match almost set the women's division back 10 years. And while I get what he's saying, I think that people have to understand that, like Jesse was saying, time constraints, you still have to give the people what they paid for, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think it was awful. I just don't think it was to the spectacle that we were thinking it was going to be.
And then compared to the rest of the card, it's just it was definitely the weakest point of the night.
Mandy Rose, though,
poor girl. I mean, she tweeted about her butt hurting on Twitter, which was a terrible idea for her because
Titus, however, did say everything's going to be okay because we all know Titus is the most famous slip into the ring.
Well,
under the ring, I should say.
To me, the funniest part about that whole situation was she tweeted about, her butt hurts. And I'm like, well, here it comes. And I looked on her thing like an hour later. Every dude, chick, Jane, whatever, was just like, I mean, I could come rub that butt for you.
Yeah, no.
So I would have. I would have given my
slow down, Leroy. Slow down.
I would have given my left arm for that one. Man.
But anyway, we are going to obviously not to skip over, but I think we need to just make a quick note of, ladies, thank you for still going out there and doing what you did.
Course.
But obviously, I think it was not the intended result.
No,
Mother Nature, you know.
The one thing I did appreciate it is when Nat looked at her and sent her up. You know,
Oh,
she
sent
was gonna
Tamina
go.
up,
She was
yeah.
gonna go for the sharp, and then threw up Tamina. Tamina went up there, tribute to her dad.
Yep.
God rest his soul, and she
Yep.
got that. I was so
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, it was so
And
good.
I was like, oh my God, Snuka.
Yep.
That's all I could say at that.
All
moment.
right,
That
so
was awesome.
Leroy.
All right,
So Leroy, the rest of the card, please. The
All
opening
right.
match.
opening match.
Which, by the way, when they finally explained that it was, they were rewarding them with the first match in front of fans, I was okay with it.
Well, and then Drew did say he wanted to have the first match
Yeah.
back in front of fans.
And,
so it
and
makes
by the way,
sense.
for those of you wondering, according to the internet, what I've read, Tom Phillips was removed during the broadcast due to COVID protocols. I don't know what the story of that is. There's also a rumor that Tom may be out of the Raw commentary team. We don't know for sure. That's just what I've read.
Yeah,
But anyway,
yeah.
go ahead there, Leroy. The
All
first
right,
match.
The first match, it was Bobby and Drew, and Bobby Lashley did retain by technical submission,
yeah,
and with the hurt lock.
it was interesting because this to me was the most shocking result.
Didn't we all have Drew in that
I
situation?
think we all picked
yeah,
Drew.
Yeah, we did.
I remember saying, well, I'm 0-1.
Well, because
Yeah.
I changed my pick because I said I think I said last week I'm like I think they're gonna keep this thing on Bobby, but after what happened on Raw 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and then what happened on Raw, and I was like, okay, clearly Drew's getting this back.
Yeah.
So I was shocked. I got to be honest, I wasn't a fan of the quote unquote how the distraction went.
Yeah.
I think it would have looked better if MVP would have just do the damn Kane in there or something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But awesome match nonetheless.
Oh, yeah. No,
Oh, yeah.
fantastic. And
Hell of a
obviously,
match.
Bobby gets a Mania moment that he richly deserves.
and not only that, but
Yes.
it's like now you're creating more intrigue to where you did kind of shock the fans. All the dirt sheets were wrong. Does this mean that Bobby's losing it on Monday and they're just going to wait
Oh,
a day?
no.
No. Before you answer,
Yeah.
hear me out. Or did Vince maybe pull a Kofi and say, let's just change up the plan and see where this goes? Because regardless of the fact that the Hurt Business was broken up, Bobby seems to have come into his own with something here,
Yeah.
and maybe they want to run with that.
Yeah.
So,
It'll
and
be
by the way,
interesting.
I think they should.
and by the way, for a big man versus big man match, this was great. It was hard hitting.
Oh, yeah.
And McIntyre over the top rope. I'm just like, well, okay, that's a flex.
What I appreciated
Woo!
about that is you don't ever really see him do that.
Mm.
So the fact that he whipped it out at Mania worked perfectly.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a Bobby got his moment, and I think Drew got his Mania moment in
Oh, yeah.
front of a crowd too. Even
yeah.
with a loss,
Yeah.
I loved it. Well, the next one we already talked about the turmoil match with Natalia and Tamina winning.
Yep.
Going to do tonight. All right. Next one on the match was is that the way? Yeah, it went. Seth Rollins and Cesaro.
This
With
what did I
Seth's
tell you?
This
guys?
this
With
was
Cesaro
everything
pulling the win.
that I,
I
could
love
have
that.
expected, that I wanted to expect, and that I got.
23 spins.
Oh,
Oh God, I feel bad for him.
Listen,
this was fantastic.
I have said it even when I said while they were building it, I'm like I don't even care about the build. If they give these guys half an hour, these guys are going to make magic.
What'd they give him?
I think it was
Let's see here.
17 minutes.
No, 11 minutes and
Yeah.
35
It
seconds.
felt like 20 though.
It
They
was
were able to
so
make you-
good.
It's
Well,
just, I mean,
Then Seth doing the jumping off and doing that twisting frog splash.
it was a
What
corkscrew frog splash.
Corkscrew-
It's
yeah, I
exactly
was
what it
like,
was. It's
what
exactly what
the
it was.
He
heck
used
was
to do that in ROH.
But what people
when
have
he
to
was Tyler
understand
Black.
is that
That was
what I think you
fucking-
got
that
to
was sweet.
see was two guys who, going back to their ROH days,
Yeah.
ultimately are probably two of the most athletic guys in the company.
Oh,
and Seth got such a bad rap because he was doing so much heel shit that people forgot, holy fuck, this dude is the most talented guy we have.
Oh yeah.
End of story.
Yeah.
I think it's just his mouth on Twitter gets him in trouble.
Can
a
I also
lot.
point this out? Yeah, exactly. Can I
Yeah.
also point this out? Despite what they did,
Mhm.
probably one of the safest matches you'll see in a long time.
Oh yeah.
They were, and by the way, Seth he seems to up the ante every one-on-one WrestleMania, and he's just like, okay, how can I do the stomp and get hit again? Like from the stomp into the RKO, from the stomp into the uppercut. Like, what's next? He's gonna get stomped, and then someone's gonna jump up and drop kick him in the face. Like,
it's possible.
I mean,
also,
it's
apparently, Seth now has new music.
Yeah, saw that.
It seemed similar.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't with the live in the stadium. I couldn't tell, but I'm like, wait a minute. It was a little different. Started a little.
So it's
the
like a
same,
mixture it's a mixture of metal and it's got some orchestra in the background.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Somebody's gonna probably pick it so people can actually hear it from the live feed.
Yeah,
but yeah, I was like, whoa!
The match was great.
Maybe they'll have that on Friday.
Yeah,
they'll play that on Friday.
But no, match was great. Cesaro looked as good as he's ever looked. I'm just hoping.
Please let Cesaro finally get this push.
That's what I was gonna say. All I'm saying is that this is if there was ever a launching pad, this is it.
It definitely is for him. Yeah.
And how do you
the
not
rumor
see it?
mill said that they're hoping that this finally puts Cesaro where they've always wanted to put him.
Yeah.
Well, if you heard that reaction, guys, go full on.
Right. He's one of those guys that if they ever decide to put the belt on him, I don't care who he beats, the pop is going to be insane.
It's going to be monstrous.
It's going to be insanity.
Oh, yes. All right. Next one is for the Raw Tag Team match. AJ and Omos against the New Day. I enjoyed before you get to the match.
No. Go ahead.
I did love that Big E came out and introduced
really
them.
awesome.
Oh God, what a moment!
Trust me, you should have seen my kids.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
I looked over at Eben, and all of a sudden he goes, "Oh!" His eyes got huge because it was Big E doing it again. And the New Day, unfortunately, lost against them.
Okay. I just want to point something out.
Okay.
This was the best story-told match of the night. The fact that you were doing everything you could to avoid Omos, but then when Omos finally came in, Jesse, was there a hotter tag to be found?
Dude, it was funny because in a sense, it was a reverse of AJ being the babyface being worked over.
Yes.
But he was still technically the heel in the match.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Because, and the funniest part was before the almost tag in.
Yeah.
Because, Xavier hits that almost the Macho Man elbow from the springboards into it.
Yeah.
And he sees AJ kind of crawling over to Almost. And he's like, don't you do it. Don't do it. You don't want to do it. And then AJ smiles. He looks at Almost and tags him in. And then as soon as Almost comes in, listen, I got to give Kofi and Xavier all the credit in the world. They made him look like a monster.
God. And by the way,
he is kind of a monster.
And by the way,
he is a monster.
And by the way, yo, Spot Monkey, that's how you take a big man.
Yes.
And you make him famous. is you have a former WWE champion that not only gets turned inside out, but hits him, and it's literally like he ran into a wall.
And then seeing AJ jump on his shoulders. I was like,
once again,
can
we just point this out? Yes, it made AJ a Grand Slam champion, but the performance made AJ GOAT status because AJ played the snotty heel so well. I'm sitting here like, I forget that you were so cheered when you showed up. It was so good. This match, honestly, 5 stars in the sense that what didn't it accomplish?
It was excellent.
What more did you want out of this? I'm sorry.
And the pin, after he slammed it in the pin, put his foot on there and he pinned him.
It was so disrespectful, but in
you,
the best way.
You couldn't do it a better way.
No, you couldn't have.
Kofi basically sold death after the fit. I'm like, listen, man.
I would sell death after that. Oh, my God.
Yep.
He had to be
I would be dead.
I mean, we used to talk about how Kane and Undertaker might get you 9 feet in the air. I think Kofi had to be about 12 feet in the air with that big boy.
Oh,
God.
He was up so high he lost the oxygen before he hit the ground. So there was no oxygen to come out of his body. It just, goddamn.
Almost looks like a superstar.
He looked like...
They're going to hold those tag titles until probably AJ turns on him.
But here's the deal.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. And this is why I'm glad that Omos went to WWE. They forced him to do what will make him the most... Darren was talking earlier about making a 20-year career versus a 2-year run.
Yeah.
If he works like that and is just a big man,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously, my definition of a 5-star match is you come away from it, you look back, and if you can say I wanted nothing more, it's a 5-star match. There was nothing more that I could want from that.
Yeah, I mean,
it was so good. New Day were the perfect champions to lose.
Like, I know some people were like, you can't. Some people were like, well, you're telling me that because they're like, you've watched a Cedric match and you can't tell me Cedric can't sell this. I'm like, don't get me wrong. Yes, they could have turned almost an AJ babyface. There's a lot of different ways they could have gone about it, but the reason it works better with the New Day is because you're in excellent hands.
Yes, they're so good.
Oh yeah.
I just 5-star match.
Fantastic.
Fuck
stuff.
anyone that questions me. 5-star
like
match.
almost his first WrestleMania match.
So
and he
good.
gets one of
It was great.
a moment.
I think he's only 28, so let the future streak begin.
Yeah.
Moment number one. You
Yeah.
have another WrestleMania moment.
All right.
Next is the lovely steel cage, where Braun killed Shane McMahon.
I'm about to say he killed
Shane
Shane
This
McMahon.
was-
Oh my God.
This was not as hokey as the build-up. This was actually good. Once again, Shane McMahon, much like the year he wrestled AJ,
Mhm.
he gave me a WrestleMania moment where I'm like, because Gene was making the joke during the rain delay in the chat, was just like, even Mother Nature doesn't want to see Braun versus Shane in a steel cage, but just to sit there and to watch it and to get immersed in just the moment, not even the build up, was great.
Yeah,
I
just
I
the
actually
boys run
thought
in and
it
hit
was
him
a
with the
good-
chair to
Yep.
start.
It was a
they
good
worked.
match.
I think the most memorable thing everyone will remember is Shane is almost out. He's almost out. He's almost
He
won.
ripped the cage
He
open.
decides to put no one's ever done this, and that's when you knew he
No.
was in trouble.
Yep.
He puts his arm in to call Braun stupid and wave
Yep,
goodbye.
Yep.
That's when he got.
Yep.
Even my kids. He ripped the cage open.
And for
yes,
the first
he
time,
did.
Shane didn't. Well, actually, since the first time since I think Blackman, Shane didn't throw himself off of something.
He was
Braun threw Shane
thrown
off of
off.
something.
He said, "Who's stupid now?"
Yep.
and then
And-
proceeded to murder Shane.
And then proceeded to cause a murder on live
yeah.
pay-per-view.
Well, and I did look at Evan. When he saw that, I said, "Do you see how Shane landed?
Flat
Well, yeah.
back.
On his back, tucked his. I mean, so he got hurt, but he didn't get hurt.
No, it's just.
But it looked like he died.
It
Oh,
looked.
God.
Jesse said Shane was going to win in that scenario, but
I
Shane
did.
lost in
He
that
did.
scenario.
I'm glad I was wrong.
Shane died either way. Jesse gets a half a point.
We're one up on him.
Yeah,
All right, we got
yeah.
a half a point on you. All right.
Jesse, I'll give you half a point because Shane did die, and you predicted he would die.
Okay.
I knew. I'm like, if it's in a steel cage, Shane is gonna die.
We screwed up on the first one, but we've been doing pretty good on the.
Yeah,
on
no,
the-
yeah,
on the
we're
rest of
doing
them so
great, yeah.
far. All right, after that fun one, and yes, I was very surprised on this to tag with Bad Bunny and Damian Priest.
Surprise! I was
beating the
damn
Miz
near
and Morrison.
popping.
Wow.
I popped when that Mexican destroyer, and I'm calling him Mexican destroyer because he's of Latin descent.
Yeah.
But when he did
When
the
he did the
destroyer,
outside-
I actually messaged Corey shortly after the match, and I'm like, or maybe it was this morning. I'm like, yeah, when he hit the destroyer, I popped, and Corey was like, yeah, same here. It's just like, it was like, okay.
That dude. Here's why to me this was so phenomenal. Now I had heard that he had been working in the performance center the last few months.
Yeah.
Yes.
To get ready for this feud.
But to get ready to almost look like the second coming of Rey Mysterio, what the hell
Dude,
happened in this training
usually
session?
Did
Celebrity
good.
matches, they sit on the sidelines, they hit a splash, they
Yeah.
win the match.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy was like, no. I care enough about what you guys do. I want you trained. I'll take the beating.
I'm still
I will
giving
do this."
I'm still giving Pat McAfee the slight edge because it was in a singles match.
Well, listen, Pat
Yes.
Pat will get the edge just because I had a feeling, especially with him being a former football player,
Yeah.
he was going to work like a wrestler.
Yeah, exactly.
He respects them so much. he
But-
was always going to work like a wrestler.
But
Bad Bunny did.
Bad Bunny,
He took
Sir,
the good hits.
Kudos to you,
sir.
yes,
my-
definitely.
I salute you.
I would applaud the soundboard, it died.
It-
I got to charge
it's
it,
fine,
unfortunately.
But just
Oh, he
no,
did. He
Bad
sold
Bunny,
everything well.
Well, I mean, by the way, going back to what I said yesterday before the show, Priest also didn't look hokey.
No,
This was a good introduction. Also, I think it was great that Priest got his own entrance at WrestleMania, that he wasn't just next to Bad Bunny, that he wasn't just a sidekick to Bad Bunny. Priest came in like it was two single guys working a tag team match.
Yeah.
Priest got
Bunny's-
a moment of an entrance, and Priest looked great.
Yeah.
Oh, he did. I'm high, very high on Priest. Bad Bunny, his entrance, I was a little different.
So it's a callback. If anyone actually watched Thunder/Nitro,
Yep.
it was a callback to the Thunder intro from back in '97.
Yeah.
So they used to have the truck that kind of came in as the entrance of Thunder.
Yep.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he did
Yeah,
a
yeah.
callback
That's
to
what,
that.
all right,
Yep.
all right,
Yep.
that's what.
So if
okay.
it looked familiar to wrestling
There we go.
fans, that's
That's
what
why
it
it
was.
just-
And can I also
Couldn't
point
quite
out
get it
that
figured out.
that I
And of course, they own the library, so WWE doesn't
you-
care.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes.
But also, one of the things that I thought was going to be the hardest thing to do, because it's always the hardest thing to do with the celebrity match, they made him look like a star,
Yeah. And like I said, a lot
and
of
not
the-
just a celebrity name. He looked like a wrestling
Yeah.
star.
He looked
did.
phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah.
He,
All right.
He even got like the fact that he decided to be the guy to take the heel heat by getting beat up.
Yeah,
most of the match.
exactly. Yeah.
Like because I think most of the crowd probably didn't care about this match at first. He actually got them into it.
Oh,
And
did
that's-
he ever? Oh,
He did.
did he ever?
And now the bad
was a
part
great
is that
setup.
people are like, you guys signed Ronda to a contract. I don't know why I signed this kid. At least he was willing to go work. Well, unfortunately, people, he will be hitting the festival circuit starting in late May, so there's nothing they can do. But big ups to you, Bunny.
But
big ups to you.
it's just, look, when you have I hate to say it, but Bad Bunny in one night did more.
You know
work.
what this means? Jake Paul better take a stunner tonight.
Oh, he will.
You better take
Logan
Let me look
Paul.
at the camera. You better take a stunner.
Logan.
No,
said
you
he
know what?
will.
Both brothers, you better take a stunner. You better take a stunner.
Well,
but all I'm saying is this, and I'll make the joke, fine, whatever. He did more work in one match than Sable did her entire run in the WWE. But anyway,
Ooh, Brock's gonna come kick
actual
your ass.
in-ring work. Am I wrong? Seriously,
You're
It's
not
just-
wrong,
no,
but all I'm saying is
Hey.
if I'm not around you when Brock comes, I wish you luck.
I've accepted my fate at that point. But no, just folks, blew my mind. It was
Yeah.
great. I don't know how you could poke a hole in it and say it was an embarrassment to the card. It was not. First of all, we always have celebrities in WrestleMania,
we do.
and but we've had bad celebrity situations
Oh.
at WrestleMania.
You know, does anyone remember Snooki? Do you remember
Yes.
that horse shit? I can go on. Do you
Lawrence Taylor was not great.
Lawrence Taylor wasn't great, but he was better than Snooki.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people better than Snooki. That's it.
Arrow,
All right.
when he attempted his thing back in the day, before he decided, like, oh, maybe I should actually train.
Yeah. Right.
Like, listen, there's been a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Well,
next
after
match.
that wonderful match that got the crowd popping, we had the main event.
Listen.
Where
Before we go on, Jesse, back to the earlier point about it
Okay.
being two nights.
Because I have so much praise
No,
for this main
no, exactly.
event.
But no,
Oh, I loved it.
no. This is why two nights is not a bad idea. The
No.
crowd was not worn out.
No.
It wasn't 8 hours of, by the time the main event rolled around, you were just waiting to go home.
Yeah.
But that's all I wanted to say there was that this is why it should be two nights for the future. But no, folks, ladies and gentlemen, I said it. And by the way, Michael Cole, some people thought that the way he worded it wasn't great, but no. Two black women main evented a night of WrestleMania. It deserved to be said.
He said
It
two women of
deserved.
color, but it wasn't offensive because Sasha's half black and half Latina. So that's okay.
I believe he actually did say two black women.
Well, he said two women of color.
I heard two black.
I don't know. Something like that. Yeah, he
It's
did.
But it wasn't offensive either way.
But it's just, folks, understand something. I don't know if you're gonna find a better moment in the last, and I'll say it, 10 WrestleManias than them just standing there and both taking in that moment, which they deserved 110%.
They took seeing, and for me, I mean, I looked at two women, didn't care, black, white, whatever.
It's still Black History, so we're obviously going to acknowledge it.
But seeing them and then looking at, and they cue on Bianca, and she's sitting there and she's getting emotional.
Keep it together,
And-
girl. You're still on live TV,
it's-
but I get it. I
But
get it. It's
but
hard.
But which I'm a big fan, and it's even getting to me, and I'm like, oh my god, I can tell. I mean, that big stage in front of fans, and oh my god, I am so happy for the
So I don't
EST
think people realize because
being the
there
champ.
are some wrestling pundits who are like, I didn't like that they kind of showed their, but I'm like, listen, these are one Sasha who is deserving of a main event spot.
Oh, without a
yes.
doubt.
Like this match reminds you, like
Male or female, she's one of the best
like
workers
we have to
on the
stop
roster.
just talking
Yes.
about Charlotte and Becky all the time, and I know why we do it. And I get why we do it.
Yeah.
But Sasha Banks has been incredible her whole career there.
I do have a slight problem with early on when her makeup got smeared. She looked a little bit like old Greg, but I mean, Allison even said, Allison even made the joke, which fits perfectly from their summer, was, ever hit Bailey with a shoe? And I was just like, thank you, but back to this. No, it's just the moment.
I will say, because they, the fans just stood up and they started chanting their names. So yeah, they got emotional because that's huge. Like even the fans were like, "Hell yes, let's do this, girls!" Like I've been waiting for this.
And by the way, despite the horrible response to their build-up, you forgot about it halfway through the match. You didn't care.
To me, about 5 minutes after they started, I forgot about the build-up.
Yeah, no one
The
cared.
fact that they got emotional for a second.
See,
like
Allison's
watching
still
her-
not a fan of the giant braid, but here's the thing. It's a tool for the heel, not for her. It became a weapon later on, but we'll talk about that once we get to it. But just everything about this match, despite the history, despite the emotion, despite everything, neither girl, and this is what they should both ultimately be praised for, forget the actual in-ring work, they both remembered their place.
Mhm.
And I say that in that Bianca never forgot that she was supposed to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And Sasha never forgot she's supposed to make you not like her. She got that.
Yeah.
She understood that. And by the way, I know ever since the Otis situation, we weren't questioning her strength, but did she the effort that wasn't there for Bianca to lift Sasha up was just to walk up the steps. That woman is a freaking just genetic freak in the best way. She was a greenhorn when she got here.
This is not a shot at Brock Lesnar, but the fact is she is more of a genetic athlete than he is.
I agree.
Like she not only does she do it effortlessly, but think about that whole match. It's like she never got tired.
That was the thing. Okay, so Jesse, there's a joke out there on the internet of the young black girl who put Gorilla Glue in her hair. However, I did speak to a woman that does black women's hair. Mm-hmm. There actually is a product called Gorilla Glue, essentially, that black women use in their hair a lot to keep it, styled.
Frizzing out, or
huh?
Is it to help with the static or something?
No, to keep it tight.
To keep it tight.
Oh, okay.
But just to your point, she didn't get tired, sweaty. The hair did not go anywhere. No. I mean, she looked as pristine at the start as she did at the end, and that insane. Is a testament to somebody who just, my God, the athleticism does. And by the way, what is being lost here, even though I've said it on the show 1,000 times if I've said it once, she didn't have any wrestling experience until she got to the PC. But folks, if you listen, if you do it the right way, if you listen to the sport, if you get it, you will get over.
Yep.
This is okay. Remember, we always said Sting more so got over because he was a better student than Warrior. But Sting is never a guy who, quote unquote, we think can be a trainer, manager, future guy. Bianca, just the woman is a freak in the best way. And by the way, point something out. Her dad might just over-exaggerate everything he does in life because
he almost fell over the brain.
Oh God!
Leroy's
got a funny story about that here after.
She
the
was
match,
on the bump. She was on the bump last night.
Go ahead.
She was on the bump this morning.
Yeah.
And
this morning she was in a car.
She was in a car in a bump. I'm like, why are you in a car? her parents were going somewhere and they had some car problems, and she was going to rescue them.
By the way, folks, it was also her birthday weekend.
That was her birthday.
Man.
Was it her birthday on Saturday or was it Friday?
Either one, it
think it
doesn't
was
matter.
Friday,
Like
but
within
it was her
48 hours
birthday
of her birthday, she won the SmackDown Women's title.
Yeah.
One of the biggest takeaways for me is one, Vince can be proud because she is a homegrown WWE product.
Proof she is proof positive the system works.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other point that he can be proud of, and hopefully he's learned from what happened with Kofi Kingston, is that she can do everything you ask her to. Push her to the moon. You can actually continue this feud with Sasha.
Oh yes, easily.
Oh yes.
Just like in my opinion, Bobby and Drew are not done
Bobby
by
and
a
Drew
long shot.
they're not done by a long.
Oh,
like
no.
To me, the distraction finish showed they're not done by a long shot.
But just
Unfortunately, though, on Raw there are some contenders.
Yes,
there,
I agree.
And there's a rumor of a big, sexy black man coming back on Monday. So there's another contender coming back. But I will say this:
go ahead. Jesse.
it's one of those things where Vince can be proud of going. She's a homegrown product. The system works. And she's a role model in a way
But
that we haven't had in a long time.
But this is what I think you have to realize. What about Bianca can't she do? And I'm serious.
No, there's nothing she cannot do.
I think the mic game needs a little more work, but not a lot.
Not a lot.
She's a long way than I think people realize.
I think
she's
she can
not
talk to her
Sasha
hubby.
level, but she's not bad.
No.
But
She
physically,
does have someone to help her.
yeah, exactly.
Her husband.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Physically,
Oh, that man's incredible.
there's nothing she can't do. She can sell to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
She gets selling.
Yeah.
She sold it. Her reaction when Sasha kicked out, it maybe would like okay, maybe you could say you slightly overdid it, but in an era where nobody sells death, and I'm not joking, Spot
Yes,
Monkey,
that's
you don't
true.
sell death. It was great.
Yeah.
And by the way, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna say it. 8 out of 5 star match.
Yes.
You can't tell me anything on this night was better than that.
Yeah.
You can't.
It was great. I mean,
what
they-
did you hate? Okay, seriously. Find. Okay, we all remember every moment of the match.
Nothing.
Find one thing you didn't like.
Nothing.
Good luck,
nothing.
because I can't. Like seriously. Not only do I not. Okay, not only did I get everything I needed, everything I wanted, I wanted them to go longer.
You know what? It's fun because they went like almost 40 minutes. I think.
What was the total time on that match?
For that one, they were not the longest match.
Oh.
17 minutes and.
That was only
15
17 minutes.
7, yeah.
God damn.
The first
It
match.
felt much longer,
The
but it
first
felt
match
good.
was the longest. The first Drew, they're 18 minutes.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Oh wow!
I
But I was gonna
it
say
was good mix of time on all of
that match.
For the
That
night.
match finishes. You know what my third thought was?
Yeah.
As it's getting ready to go off the air.
Yeah.
I know these three guys are main eventers, but I feel so bad for Edge, Roman, and
Oh,
DB.
you gotta
They'll-
follow that,
you
boys.
You boys,
You gotta
you guys are
follow
gonna probably get
that.
more time tonight.
Yeah.
But you boys got a lot of work
Oh, by
to
the
do.
way, going back to Leroy's favorite air.
Oh, and by the way, this is no slight against Becky, Charlotte,
Oh,
and it
no,
might
no,
be
no.
a slight against Ronda, but I have my feelings about her at this point.
Yeah.
Way better than that triple threat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Way
I'll agree.
better than that
now,
triple threat.
Now, to go back to your favorite era of wrestling, to go back to what I think was your favorite of New Japan's run, because they've kind of delved into this negative stuff a little bit here.
Yeah.
Folks, the finishers in this match mattered.
Yes.
Yes.
They didn't hit.
She basically couldn't hit the KOD most of the
But
match.
here's the deal. She hit it, and Sasha got out. But it's not like she hit it 3 times and she got out.
No.
It wasn't like they did a bunch of crazy shit and she got out. She hit it one time. It didn't look like she got all of it. Sasha got out of it. Sasha, with the bank statement, it's a submission, so you can always kind of play with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt a submission to get out of it or not. I mean,
No.
submissions are always okay.
Well, and then it's a spot where she always hits that spot where
Yeah.
she kicks up, rolls them back into the
yeah,
middle of the ring.
but just in
Yeah.
this match, this is the best of new school and your old school.
Oh,
and
yeah.
back to where a finish matters, back to where the performance matters.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies, I don't even want to clap because I don't know what to give you except a thank you.
It was incredible.
Well, yeah,
You guys
That's
were
when
incredible.
Sasha got whipped by that hair.
Oh my God!
I don't know if
it
they
hurt.
added that sound, but
No.
That was not an ad. That was
So-
flesh on
and then-
hair.
Oh, and then that mark. I want to
yeah,
see
that
her.
welt.
I want to see her on
So
Friday
it's
and how
a
that
little
looks.
plastic thing that she's
Oh.
always wrapped her hair
Right,
with.
yeah.
That's
'Cause
the
when
noise.
she first started, she used to use the hair whip because she was a heel.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think people forgot because she hasn't used it very much.
No.
And luckily, I think she was told, like, don't use it until you know, in certain spots.
Yeah.
Because then it'll have more impact.
Yeah.
It was so loud. So apparently the
Oh,
crowd,
God, yeah.
apparently some of the crowd behind them, like behind the main shot, actually thought that was a gunshot because it was so loud. So everyone was
it
like, oh,
was.
shit.
It was.
I know we're in Florida, but what?
I said that sitting here. I'm like, damn. And then when they showed when she was on the outside and she goes like this and points
You
at
could
that
see
the
that
mark
shit. It
on
was
the.
like,
I was
oh.
like, that had to friggin'
By the way,
hurt.
props to Sasha, because there's no way she had any air in her body after she got hit with that.
Oh, my
So she still
God.
continued the match
Yep.
probably with no breath.
But just look, I get it. Sasha is now 0-6 at WrestleMania. I get that, but she hasn't had a bad match in my opinion at WrestleMania.
No.
And the other
No.
thing you also have to realize is, folks, sometimes streaks or where someone loses or how they lose gets a little overblown. Sasha Banks.
Randy Orton doesn't have a good WrestleMania record.
No.
And it ain't going to get better tonight, I promise you that.
Sasha
Triple H
Banks
doesn't either.
Nope.
No. Sasha Banks, from this moment on, if anyone on the internet, and okay, I've gotten to the point in my life where I hate jumping in with stupid people, but if anyone sits there and says Sasha Banks is anything but one of the top females in this company, I will rip you until you no longer have a Facebook, Twitter, whatever.
I'll help you with that.
She was phenomenal in
Oh.
defeat. And by the way, Bianca, to think she can still get better is almost nervous.
It's insane, isn't it?
It's just like
She's not even at her
Oh.
best yet.
No, that's true.
Bianca Belair
Because
is
this is the kind of match they would have had on an NXT show. Like,
yeah.
because people, when I heard that comparison, I'm like, you know what, you're right. Like, if you would have if they were in NXT together,
Yeah.
and they would have had this on an NXT show, this is the kind of match you would expect.
Oh, yeah,
from
yeah.
them. It's,
Yes.
it's this
Just,
insanely great.
Here's the thing. There are moments when a match happens and you sit there and you realize should have been the main event.
Yeah.
This was a moment where whoever made said decision, whether it was Vince or somebody else, brilliant. Raise, I don't care. Just
yeah, give
it,
that guy some more money.
it was so good.
Oh, yeah. All right.
All right, so now we're moving on
A
here, guys.
part of me has to believe it was Paul Heyman. And I've always said
Hopefully.
that man deserves at least 50% stock and creation of the
Right.
companies.
But anyway, we are now moving on to night 2. Before we move to night 2, Jesse, I know I've called back to it a couple of times, but I need a thought before we get to the second ever night 2 of WrestleMania. Only because last year was the split
First,
because of
yeah.
the pandemic. This is the first real 2 night. What were your thoughts when you heard Wrestle Kingdom was going 2 nights?
So,
Because you're the type of guy who is willing to, especially with the possible news coming up of New Japan,
yeah,
you're willing to be honest about New Japan.
absolutely.
Was there nerves when you first heard that Wrestle Kingdom was going to do this?
My original thoughts were never negative when
Okay.
Wrestle Kingdom went to 2 nights, but it was like, it was nervousness, but it was for them
Yeah,
because I was like, man, that you're putting a lot on yourself.
right.
Like you put a lot on yourself to
And
tell
what people have to understand
to
is
come
that
back 2 nights.
when you do 2 nights, it's not night 2 that's the problem.
It's night 1
Because everyone knows that the money is
Yep.
going to be in night 2. But you have to make people who maybe aren't going to night 2, you have to make it worth the money to go to night 1. Because
Yeah.
here's the deal. There's always a turnover of people who went to 1 but aren't going to 2, or people who are going to 2 and didn't go to 1. There's always that.
Yeah.
But if you go to 2, you automatically think I'm getting the money matches.
Yeah.
So to give people that thought of you gave them a night 1, you might have given them the match of the night at night 1. You might have.
I don't believe that because I will say this. while I feel very nervous for two future Hall of Famers, one who's already in the Hall of Fame, who wrestled tonight.
Well, Daniel's already in the Hall of Fame, isn't he?
No.
They didn't induct him?
No, that was a mistake.
Right. Okay.
When they announced
that was a mistake. I'm like, you know what? Well, you might as well do it now, though. I mean, why not?
Well, eventually he will be.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm like, I feel nervous for them in the sense that I'm sure they're proud of those ladies.
Yeah.
Roman is a locker room leader. I'm sure he's very proud of those ladies. But you got to be like, shit, dude.
I would walk up to both ladies and say, hey, congrats. Fuck you. We got to follow this shit. It's like, fuck you,
like, you
ladies.
guys just made our life so much worse tomorrow night.
And by the way, before we move on tonight, too,
and by the way, heaven forbid. So remember, we got the Destroyer match with Amos. Heaven forbid we get a couple more matches just like we had last night on tonight's card.
Yeah.
Now you really got to be better than those women.
Now, before we move on tonight, two things. Number one, the after pictures of Bianca with Montez and her family.
Beautiful.
Wonderful moment. And also, number two, Jesse, we talked about the
Apparently Montez almost injured his knee, though, because he was so happy.
Yeah, exactly.
He
Just
sprinted
down.
and he cleared it so much.
Yeah.
They showed the video on the bump. He came flying down. And
I'm
zipping
surprised-
that
And
ring.
she got nervous because she didn't know who the hell that was.
Yep.
at first.
I'm surprised because by the way, I wouldn't put this past Montez whether by accident or on purpose. I'm surprised he didn't run down the ramp and slide completely through the ring and out the other end.
He was pretty close.
I know.
He was pretty close.
Put your
It was
arms up to catch
beautiful.
yourself on the rope just to make sure it doesn't happen. But no. So Jesse, somebody made a point outside of the matches where there obviously weren't minorities in it. Minorities pretty much ruled night one. Now, my question to you as a wrestling fan, not a young black man, but as a wrestling fan, do you care about that, or do you care that every match seemed to end the way it should have?
I do think seeing like why Bad Bunny was so important to them. Seeing someone that looks like you is huge. One thing Vince has always said with his promotions is that he wants to inspire more people. One thing that he said he always differed from his father from, and that's just because of the time his father grew up. It's just
wrestling. We've proven wrestling is an era issue,
Yeah.
not a.
But
not a skin issue.
Basically, he always said, like, I want wrestling to feel like you can come do this.
Yeah.
You can come do this. And
Sadly, the Bucks tried the same thing, but they do the shittier version of it.
we'll get into their assholes tomorrow. Well, we'll get into those assholes
At
tomorrow.
another date.
There's no good way of saying that.
By the way, I just want to point out a little nugget here. I have some information that I want you two to stay off of the message boards till tomorrow because I've got some fun little Dave Meltzer stuff that you two still don't know about. But I want to be very clear that tomorrow we're going to be talking about some Dave Meltzer stuff that you two are not that up on yet. But I have a feeling you're going to just drop your jaw, and I have a feeling that based on your previous rant of Dave and of the Bucks saying that booking is hard, I have a feeling you might lose your shit at this thing.
All
so
right.
we'll get to it. But anyway, moving on. But no,
like I said,
back to your
love
point.
it.
Yeah.
representation
Love the tease.
is absolutely huge.
Yes.
But overall,
I don't want to take away from the moment.
Yeah.
But my question is, as a wrestling fan,
but as a wrestling fan,
are you more happy that it all made sense?
in 2021, I'm just happy I got a great wrestling show.
Exactly.
With
Exactly.
people there. Oh,
Look, by the way, even more pertinent for me, as an American wrestling fan, I'm happy I got a great American wrestling show because I have had to live through New Japan's wrestling and All Japan's wrestling and Ref Pro because American wrestling has kind of been shit for a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I will say this, though. Regardless of if you thought it was good, regardless of who you thought did it, but when BB Rexa was doing America the Beautiful,
She did a good job.
no, but that's not my point. The biggest takeaway from that was the camera stopping on Rhea, and in that moment, every wrestling fan in the world felt like Rhea Ripley did. It didn't matter that, and when I say world, I'm like, I don't care about the fact that we played an American song, yada yada, blah blah. You play them before all major events, whatever. We all realized this is live.
Yeah.
And there are people. And we are doing this because there are people in the building.
they got caught up in a moment. I mean, and they talked about it too, as when
And I've never been. I'll say it, I have never in my life, and I'm serious. Never in my life was I so happy to see Vince McMahon. I just never. I've never been so happy
It was really-
to see
that's
Vince.
huge.
And by the way, he looked on that night as good as he has in a long time. I don't know what it was, but Vince looked like he came down a few years in age of that night. But
good makeup. Yeah,
it was just, guys, we got wrestling back. I know there was a weather delay. We're probably going to have another one today because, based on everything that's coming out of there, the weather's still shit. But
I blame Tom Brady. He's probably got some voodoo stuff.
Yeah,
going
it's,
on.
Tom Brady.
And as a Jet fan, I will just always hate Tom Brady.
That's fair. Good luck, Zach Wilson.
No, really, good luck, dude.
But no. Anyway, okay, we're gonna get tonight too. But just to finish up my point, it was a great moment, I think, just in world history.
Yeah.
And again, not even the fact that they won, Jesse, but the one thing that I think people don't understand, and if I can get slightly political for a second, it has never been in the black community, especially Bad Bunny, obviously, with the Puerto Rican, Latin community. It's never been about wins and losses in the history of African Americans. It's just been the fact that you wanted a chance.
Yeah.
You wanted your opportunity to shine.
Yeah.
I always go back to JBL said about Ron Simmons, to break down barriers, you have to be better than the people that put them up.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the deal. Ron Simmons took them down, gave these folks a chance. If they had all stunk, even if they had stunk, they got a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were all great, which is a positive. But it's all about the fact that, remember, Jackie Robinson wasn't the true break of the color barrier. They were the Jackie Robinsons in the sense that they were actually good. Mm-hmm. They were better than the barrier builders.
Yeah.
Ron Simmons didn't necessarily – I don't want to say Ron Simmons was better than the barrier builders, but he was the guy who broke the barrier. Now, Ron Simmons is great. I love Ron. All-time great person, wrestler, all that stuff. But Ron, I think, would even say, I did it so that the better generation could eventually have that moment. Yeah. Ron Simmons is the type of person that made that possible. And Ron Simmons, great all-time, not going to say he's not.
Yeah.
But I think the talent level on that card is a place that even Ron says he couldn't have gotten to.
Well, I mean, listen, wrestling talent, and this is not a shot at the old school generation at all. The wrestlers of today are just athletically better.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not even going to argue that.
You know, it's one of those things. Like I've always said, it's weird because you think the barrier breakers, but for us as the younger people, and things, we need to be even better than they were, so another one can never be put back up.
Well, that's what I said. Jackie Robinson didn't break the color barrier, but he made it so that the barrier would never be put back up because Jackie Robinson could play baseball. Jackie Robinson was a damn good baseball player.
And he had to deal with a lot of crap. But like I said, overall, for these two women, I think the biggest thing not only was just that it was two black women, but it was two incredibly deserving women.
But that's my whole point, is that while I love that we're making the moment in black history, we made a moment in just the fact that, again, I think
women of all colors should be proud of this.
Great.
Yes.
The whole night was great. And so night one, to me, is a history maker, not necessarily for the results, but for what it accomplished. Yes, tonight may seem a little more of a white night, and that's just kind of an obvious take.
I got to be honest. I'm actually even more excited for tonight thanks to last night.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of the same matches on tonight.
But I also want to point this out.
You've got to be better.
But I also want to point this out. Now, back to our ultimate future.
And by the way, maybe a lot of them should be happy NXT aren't on these shows.
Right, yeah.
Because I'd be like, so, besides the NXT Championship, you guys have to be even better than night one.
But now back to the overall political idea of now equality. Mm-hmm. The people who are on Sunday, they're there because they deserve it.
Oh, of course.
We're not saying that, despite how much talent we saw on night one, I'm actually more excited that the fact that night of color, we'll say, that's more of a future stars as opposed to Sunday, who are the now stars. I'm actually more excited of what's coming from night one as opposed to what's already there on night two, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So anyway, let's get to night two. Leroy, we have matches. Let me get out the results that I posted in the lounge, but we have matches, and we've got some damn good ones, folks.
All right.
So, Leroy, what do you got?
We got number one, and I don't know if this is going to be the right order, except for the last one is going to be the last
Well, yeah,
one.
yeah, okay.
Asuka and Rhea Ripley for the Raw Women's Championship.
I've got Asuka.
I've got Rhea.
I got Rhea.
Well, we're going to differ already on night 2.
There you go.
I've got Rhea because I think nothing against Asuka. I love Asuka. She will always find a way back to being Asuka. You have to build Rhea back to something that people want to pay for if they're going to come back in the building. And you pretty much, in the correct wrestling way, but you buried her when she left NXT. You got to give her some legitimacy early in her main event run.
Unfortunately for Rhea,
it is.
Here's why.
It is the best version of Asuka. I'll say that.
Here's why I say it's Asuka. Unfortunately for Rhea, there's another who is coming up. I'm almost certain, and she's going to Raw.
Io.
And she's better than you and Asuka. And she's going to take that championship at next month's pay-per-view, which I think is going to be Backlash. Okay. That's Io Shirai.
Well,
so
you never know.
You got
maybe,
you need a monstrous selling point for Backlash.
Yeah.
That's your monstrous selling point for Backlash.
You can't tell me, and I'm serious.
And I love Rhea Ripley.
No, I know. But here's the deal. You can't tell me, and I'm 100% serious, that after watching the entirety of Io's run as NXT champion, you can't tell me that if you don't just literally repeat it on the main roster, that it's not going to be just as successful, if not more. You can't tell me that Io can't repeat that. She's so good.
Like I said, I think she's one of those. As soon as she gets called up, everyone's gonna be like, "Hey, so when's she gonna be champion?" Like,
once again, I'll say it because I guarantee you that. Look,
and yes, I know Becky is once again teased that she'll be back.
Yeah.
You're so mean, Becky. Why do you do that to fans?
But here's the deal. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. Jesse, this is another notch in the hate Kenny Omega belt. That dude, you didn't think about Io Shirai being the better Joshi wrestler to bring over at one point. I'm not talking about his personal life. I'm just saying you had the opportunity to show the world Joshis, and you knew AEW was going to be a thing. You didn't find a way to get Io to AEW.
They let Priscilla Kelly walk out the door. That's all I have to say about them. We're going to get into those dickheads tomorrow.
Next match.
All right, we'll get into that tomorrow. The next day.
Next match.
All right, we have The Fiend with Alexa Bliss. Love that little girl. And Randy Orton.
I want to make a bet with you.
Okay.
Because we both believe that our buddy The Fiend's going to win.
Yeah.
I got him destroying Randy in 7 minutes.
Ooh, it's 7 minutes?
Yeah. Over or under 7 minutes?
Over and under at 7?
This is not counting the entrances, which will be 10 minutes
alone. Yep.
Damn.
Leroy, over or under?
Because remember, there's no stipulation to this match. Nothing. So I think Randy's just getting his ass whooped within 7 minutes. Very badly at that.
Leroy, over or under?
Damn.
Over or under?
The odds.
This will make watching it with your kids even funner now.
Oh, no shit.
Over or under 7?
I mean, look. I'm gonna go over.
Okay.
And actually,
Randy's gonna put up a little bit of fight.
Hold on. I want to sweeten this pot just a little bit.
What's the bet? Is it
a
monetary bet or a torture bet?
Hold on. Before we get to the bet, no.
We gotta figure out what the bet
Stop.
is.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
All right.
Hear me out before you get to the bet.
Okay.
All right.
I want to do this Vegas style.
Okay.
The line is over or under 7.
Yeah.
But the spread, I will give Jesse 3 minutes in each direction. How's that now? Does that change your thought? I will give you a spread of 3 minutes over and 3 minutes under to still beat him in this bet. Leroy, now the ball is in your court with a spread of 3 minutes.
Dude, I'll give you a spread of 2 minutes, and I'd do it.
Jesse?
Okay.
All right. Okay. We're going to give – all right, so 7 minutes – all right, over under 7. Leroy's got over, but Jesse is good to 9.
Gotcha.
You're good to 9, but if it's still 7, that's the idea.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah, all right.
Gotcha.
I lose a bet.
So, okay, so
I'm
now
thinking...
toss me a pen. Hold on.
Oh, shit.
No, wait. I got a pen.
You got a pen?
All
right. You got to write it down?
Something with some hot sauce or something.
Jesse's about to pick up a new thing of hot sauce. Are you getting Al's hottest?
I don't know if I'm getting... Actually, I didn't get Al's hottest, but I do have a super hot sauce at home.
Okay.
Oh, shit.
Leroy?
Yeah.
And we will actually do this live.
I am man enough.
On a stream tomorrow.
I am man enough. What are you going to make me eat? Just
You know,
dip it in
we'll just
anything?
do hot sauce on quick chip chicken.
Ah,
So at least it's pleasurable, but it's going to burn a little bit.
yeah, to get something to drink with it.
Yeah.
Now hold on.
Oh, yeah.
We also must be clear.
Yeah.
If by some odd chance
Yeah.
that Randy wins,
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Ooh.
Leroy loses.
What?
You've got the Fiend.
Shit.
Well, shit,
No, hear me out. Hear me out. Here's my reasoning. For anyone out there wondering, here's my reasoning.
Okay.
Jesse proposed the bet.
True.
You're taking the bet. So
Okay.
your pick still has to be right. If freaking Gonzaga loses the championship, but that was your pick, you don't get anything. But you're betting on the Fiend winning, even though you both have the same victory, you're the one accepting the bet, so your pick now matters more than his, even if it's the same pick. Does that make sense?
All right. Yeah,
Okay,
because
all
Randy-
Oh, because you need the match to go longer than I do.
Yes. I honestly think it's going to go by probably about 10 minutes.
Okay.
I think so. Randy's going to put up a little bit of
still,
fight.
I still got 7.
Yeah. Okay.
I got like I said, we're not going to count the entrances because that wouldn't be fair to either of us.
No.
That's going to be like 15 minutes alone.
Soon as the bell rings,
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so,
if it goes less than, but if it goes under 5 minutes,
Jesse loses.
Jesse loses.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
allow me to pull out my Jim Cornette tennis racket to explain.
Oh, that makes me nervous because if it goes less than
Hear
5,
me
I'll
out.
be happy. But
Hear
oh
me out.
shit!
Hear me out.
You're screwed.
Hear me out. Allow me to get out my Jim Cornette tennis racket
All
to
right.
explain the Vince Russo rules that we just made up. All
Oh,
right.
my
So,
Lord.
ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have the
All right.
Fiend versus Randy Orton in an
Yes.
anything goes match. If
Well,
not,
that's not anything.
No, it's just a regular match.
It's a regular
considered
match. Okay,
a
all right,
regular
all right.
Singles
Okay.
match.
Yep.
hey,
Yes.
the ring announcer last night got his one mulligan during the tag team tournament.
Oh my God, that was awful.
I get my one.
I forgot about that.
You get a mulligan every single week.
I know it's called sitting next to you. Anyway. So, okay. All right. Back to this point. We
All right,
have
all
a
right,
match. Randy Orton versus The Fiend.
Yeah.
Not from the moment the bell rings.
Okay.
And okay, now hold on. One more bet. From the moment the bell rings or the moment they first touch?
From
The bell.
the bell rings. Is that
bell
when
ring is
time
the
Okay.
start of the
starts?
match.
Okay.
The bell ring is the official start of the
Okay.
match.
You two have both agreed. From the moment the bell rings, over or under 7 minutes of this total match, the spread has been set by the house, being me, at 3 minutes.
I
You
said 2.
No, hold on.
Yeah, he said 2.
Hold
He
on.
said
No,
two.
no. Let me finish.
Go for it.
The house has set it at 3, but the two parties involved have agreed to 2.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the spread is 2 minutes in either direction.
Okay.
This match, for Jesse to win, must finish within 5 to 9 minutes.
Okay.
For Leroy to win, and Jesse's 0-1 already. For Leroy to win, and honestly, I quick trip chicken, yeah, but I think we should maybe change that to spam. That might be kind of more fun.
Oh boy.
And spam?
We'll do
Oh,
spam.
You know what? You buy the spam. I'll bring the hot sauce.
All right, deal.
right.
Deal.
Oh, I'm screwed.
Okay,
Maybe.
okay, listen up.
Oh
listen
man.
up.
Shit, I might be screwed.
The match must go from 5 to 9 minutes exactly from when the match will end when the referee's hand hits the mat, or whenever the bell rings.
Yeah.
You get the okay.
Yeah.
You get the idea. Okay. So that's my question. Okay, so since we're based on time here, from the moment the hand hits 3 or the moment the bell rings, what's the ending for you two?
I would think from the moment the bell rings, bell to bell.
Okay.
Or and you know, I will look it up
Yeah.
on Wikipedia because they usually have it pretty damn good to see if I'm screwed or not.
Do you agree? Do you agree? Do you agree? Bell to bell, Leroy, right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
bell to bell.
Okay.
I
Okay.
agree. I
Okay.
agree.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So this match.
You're on, sir.
Now,
Shook the hand. We gotta do that.
For Leroy to win, the match
We need to go
ends,
under 5.
Has to
ends
end
at
less than
4:59 or continues past 9:01.
Bet.
All right.
Bet.
All right.
I swear
Oh,
to God, if this is a normal 20-minute match, I'll be pissed. Not because I lost the bet, but just because that they did that.
I'll
to
be
me.
looking
But
at my.
here's the deal,
I'll
Jesse.
be looking
Here's
at
the-
my phone like. Hey.
Well, but here's the deal. Here's the deal, Jesse. You're the one who was so confident as soon as he said it.
I am.
You've got this.
I am. Just WWE, don't you dare pull a fast one.
If it goes 10 minutes, I'll be sitting there going, yes, yes, yes. And then,
Leroy,
Jesse,
Leroy, you officially must go live on your phone regardless of the result. How's that?
what? Oh, after the match?
Yes.
I have to go live?
You have to go live regardless of the
Whether if you
results.
win or lose, that'd
Oh,
be fun.
am I going live through my own? Or through the
Your own phone.
Yeah.
On
Where
the
do I
page
need to
like
go
you've
through?
done.
The
Yep.
lounge?
Like yep, on the page
Yeah.
like you've done.
Are
Yeah.
we doing lounge? Well, through the page or the lounge? You want me to do that?
Huh?
You want me to go through the page or the lounge?
Let's go through the page.
To the page?
Well,
All right.
Jesse and I will obviously share it to all the
Oh,
players.
of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
All right,
Respective-
yeah.
All right, so the bet's
Are we?
on.
We're gonna have to put. We're gonna put that bet up in the lounge too for everybody
Oh,
to
yeah.
enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
All
this
We
is
got to
Yeah.
finish
fun.
up the show for that to finish. All right. So
right,
anyway,
all right.
Leroy, next match. God, that was a fun segment for me. I got to keep this paper now. All right.
We're gonna have to introduce a bet box. in
Yeah,
this show.
yeah.
Oh God, that's
All
gonna
right,
be
what do you got?
dangerous. All right. Then we have the Intercontinental Big E and Apollo Crew with the Nigerian Drum Fight match.
I just want to see it.
This
I
is
just
gonna-
want to watch these two go at it.
I'm gonna push and not gonna pick anyone because I don't know.
I'll definitely push and say I don't know, but I do want to see it.
I'm happy. I'm excited for the match.
Oh, yeah.
But
Nah.
this is 50-50.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go for Apollo.
The
All
booking,
right.
the booking to me
You
is
know what?
50-50.
As far as points that we're keeping up on us picks, we won't even count that one against you because I don't know.
Yeah, no idea.
I
Well,
really
I can see
don't.
it's going in Apollo, and it could continue.
True.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
that's what I was
Yep.
saying there too.
All right.
All right, next, good old KO fight Kevin fight against Sami Zayn with Logan Paul.
This match is the epitome of if WWE just leaves these two alone, they will create magic.
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
Logan Paul's probably going to take a shot. Allison will pop for that. She hates him. I've got KO just because Sammy always comes out on the losing end of the KO situation.
I'm going KO.
I'm going K. I almost went Sammy because I'm like maybe Logan goes heel, but I after seeing the whole thing on Raw, yeah, no.
I feel like it's going to be a scenario where Logan might go face and then Kevin's going to stun him for the hell of it.
I think Kevin should just stun him. Period.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go, yeah.
He's that kind of person. Anyway, what else we got, Leroy?
Then we have the Women's Tag Team Championship with the champions, Nia and Shayna, against Natalya and Tamina.
Natty and Tamina, give them a moment.
Natty and Tamina.
Give them a moment.
I actually think they're going to win the championships.
I
Give
really
them
think
give
they
them a
can do it.
WrestleMania moment. They deserve it. They've worked too damn long to not get it.
But here's the fun part. Nat gave Tamina the finish. Do you think it's going to go the other way? That Nat will...
No, I actually think Nia's
Sharpshooter in the
gonna.
middle?
I think Nia's gonna be the demise of her team.
Yep.
No, but I mean for the finish.
I
For
think
Nat or
I
Tamina.
think Nat will get the pinfall, but it
Yeah.
will be because Nia is gonna accidentally
Do something to
do something to
Shayna,
Shayna
yeah,
to cost
okay.
her the match.
Yeah,
By the
'cause
way, and I hate the
Shayna
fact that
has
Shayna's
always
gonna
been
take
getting it.
another pin. Yeah.
But
She's taking them all, man.
but hear me out. This might be the one time that Shayna eating a pin might not be the worst thing if they break up the
Well,
team.
it makes sense if they
Yeah.
break up the
Yeah,
team.
exactly.
Otherwise, it hasn't
All
made
right.
sense.
We got two more matches.
Two more. No, just... Oh, what? Oh, yeah, I missed one. Sorry. Sorry. Riddle, the good old bro champ, against Sheamus.
Riddle has yet to have a bad match on the main roster.
Yes.
He doesn't have a bad. He's a lot like Miz in that the matches really aren't bad, regardless of how you feel about the character.
No, he's better than Miz because the matches are good.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's.
Who do we got?
I'm gonna take Sheamus.
I'm gonna go Riddle.
Yeah, I'm going to go Riddle.
Nope. Sorry. Never mind. I've got Sheamus.
Oh, and your pick? Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I'm the odd man out. I'm going
No,
to
yeah.
go Riddle.
because a big part of me, like they clearly like Riddle a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, if he wins, who's coming after him next? They don't have much of a mid card on Raw.
If Riddle loses, hear me out.
Okay.
Riddle somehow gets involved in Bobby and Drew.
Nah, because I think especially with if if my man KL is coming back.
Riddle could add a bit of comedy relief to that situation to break tension at times. That would be good for them. It'd be good for them.
But if Sheamus wins, then they could continue a feud that I kind of like.
That's true.
Because
that's
if
true.
we beat Sheamus,
all right.
I don't know what Sheamus is doing.
All right, so obviously tomorrow we'll get into that whole whatever is going to happen after this, because then we have to preview the Raw after WrestleMania. Oh my God,
the Raw and
and then we have another match
and the title situations.
Yeah, but hey, we got all right. But now Leroy to the main event of the 2-night WrestleMania.
Good luck, boys.
By the way, just a quick note. There are now 2 pirate ships for Kevin Owens to jump off of. Just pointing that out.
Oh shit! Yeah, there is.
There are now 2 pirate ships for him to jump off of. So
he's gonna do it.
The chances are getting higher, folks. To the main event.
All right, we got the champion, Universal Champion Roman Reigns, triple threat against Edge and Daniel Bryan.
Daniel Bryan eats the pin on, I think, Edge, because I think now is the time the money's on the line to sort of throw a monkey wrench into the island.
I think so. Yeah. If anything is, if anybody's gonna eat the pin, it's gonna be Daniel Bryan, Edge getting the title, and then
Daniel Bryan eats the pin one way or another. I think Daniel's okay with that because obviously this is Daniel's last real run as a main star.
And so far, the reports are his contract runs up in July, and he has not signed a new one. So, I've always thought that Daniel Bryan eats a pin. Real quick.
Do you think it's money time?
I will say this. So real quick, yesterday morning on Talking Smack.
Yeah.
Paul Heyman, you son of a bitch, you threw a monkey wrench in my thoughts because they had Edge on.
Yep.
And so he got up and he hugged Edge, and as he's hugging Edge, he says, "I apologize for what's going to happen to you Sunday night because I cannot stop Roman from whatever he's going to do to you, and you know how much I love you, Edge." Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with Roman.
Okay.
I think there's a chance they're keeping this title on him.
Okay.
Only because one. I think Daniel's going to be gone for a while after this. If he decides to come back part-time, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then 2...
I don't think Daniel's going to sign anywhere else because anywhere else is going to want him to wrestle more, and I don't think he wants to do it as much anymore.
I will say this for the people who think he would go to AEW. He'll be a super part-timer.
Yeah.
Like, you won't even see him on Dynamite every week.
Daniel.
There's no reason for him to go there.
Daniel Bryan right now is not the Bryan Danielson of old.
No.
Daniel Bryan, no. Like, call back to Darin here. Like Darin said, your mindset changes. He's got kids.
Yes.
They change your ideas.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
He got to come back and do it again.
Yeah.
And because now remember, Edge was in the same situation. Because it was taken away, not even your kids could fill that void. Nothing against having kids, but we all know where their minds are at with their passion. We know this, Leroy.
Oh, yeah.
But they got it back.
Mm-hmm.
So they got to live the life with the kids now. And then they kind of got to realize what's really important. Leroy, you and I have talked about if this thing ever really truly blows up. But to you, your kids are first.
Yes.
And I would understand that. You and I both get that. But that's my point is, folks, Daniel is no longer the American Dragon in mindset. He is the Daniel Bryan of, I got it back, and then I realized the void that I thought was there, it's filled by my kids. Mm-hmm. It's filled by wanting to be there for my family.
Yeah.
It's hard to get that when you had something taken from you.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. But I think so. I don't think he leaves WWE. I think if they're smart and they want to create 20 to 30 more years of gold, you send him down to NXT, you move him to Florida, and you're just like, please.
Well, here's the problem.
Train.
Here's the problem with that. So I think Paul already put that to bed. Daniel wants to when he goes home for him is Washington,
which is fine.
When Daniel
okay,
I'll just say when Paul said that it let me know he's already tried to bring him down to NXT.
Well, okay, fine. Here's the deal. Daniel's already used to traveling as much as he was. He flies down to NXT for a couple of days each week, and the rest of the week he just watches tape on all the recruits at home.
Mm-hmm. Now, like I said, I think he'll resign some sort of
Legends
part-time
deal,
contract, Legends
part-time
deal.
But I don't
the reason
think
I pick
think he'll go
Roman-
anywhere else because, like you said,
Yeah.
Even AEW won't agree to pay him what they're paying Christian, Paul White, Sting.
But that's
because,
what you'll need to do to get Daniel
But
Bryan.
the difference is that they won't do it because, like you said, Daniel's going to be even more part-time than they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Well, and the biggest reason why I'm going to give it to Edge.
Yeah.
Is one, in wrestling history, today is the day that he retired.
10 years ago.
Like 10, yeah.
10 years
I think
ago.
It was 10 because it was
2011.
9 when he came back.
Yep.
And it was 10 this Royal Rumble. So, yeah, it's 10 years.
Yep.
And I think nostalgia-wise, I'd give him the edge.
A part of me wants to think,
no
though,
pun intended.
Yeah.
A part of me, though, believes that they want to continue the Roman and Edge feud one more time.
But they could do that with Roman trying to regain the island.
Mm-hmm.
True. I don't know, because it's weird. I really wanted to pick Edge.
It's also...
But when I saw that promo from Paul, I went, fuck, Roman might beat the shit out of both of these guys.
You're also looking at it, too, is if Daniel Bryan gets pinned, whoever pins him, both of them go back saying, you never beat me.
Oh, true. Well,
you beat him. I didn't get
He's
pinned,
got
but
Daniel
he got
taking
pinned.
the pin either way, so technically you're right either way.
Yeah.
But the thing is that what's left to do with this Roman head of the table thing, the next logical step, if we use Fiend logic, regain the island.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that's happening at some point this year, apparently. That's happening. Fiend and Roman is happening at some point this year.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, he's going to get his ass whooped. But I will say, I'm going to go Roman, but if Edge wins, I have no problem with it.
Right.
I just know for sure Daniel's not winning.
No. We're all basically in agreement that he's probably taking the pin.
Like the fact that he got that moment a couple weeks ago on SmackDown, almost like I was like.
And the thing
yeah,
is that if we just call him by his real name, Bryan Danielson, for a second, Bryan Danielson, despite wanting the opportunity to be in the business, that's exactly what you have to look at it as. He just wanted an opportunity to be in the business. He gets what's best for business. He gets, sometimes I have to eat the pin. Bryan carried ROH, but he knew that when they took the belt off, it was time to do it. He didn't sit there and say, I should be ROH champion for another 300
And I want everyone
days.
to know tonight, regardless if he, eats a pin, well, he won't submit, but whenever he eats the pin, whatever, we need to thank him and AJ because they are the closest we've had to Shawn Michaels of our generation. And I don't know if we'll ever get performers like him and AJ at their size ever again.
Bryan Danielson and AJ Styles are the epitome of two gentlemen who realized the only way we were ever going to be anything is we just have to prove we are superior to everybody.
Just be better than everybody. That's what they've been for almost 20 years.
Yeah, and folks, these are two guys who they broke the mold, they changed the mold, but they both convinced Vince McMahon Jr. that they're worth the investment.
Yes.
And Daniel Bryan has been the best babyface. Maybe even more. I know people love CM Punk for obvious reasons.
I have never in my life, and I'm serious, seen a moment where, and they always say everyone is on their feet. We all know it's not everybody. But when Daniel Bryan was at the top of the cage, when he broke away from the Wyatt family, everyone in that arena was chanting yes. Everybody.
Yeah.
Don't tell me there was a single person who didn't have their arms flung in the air.
It was insane.
All right, we got a bet. We got night 2. Let's hope there's no major weather issues. Ladies and gentlemen.
There might be a 10-minute delay. We'll be fine.
Ladies and
We're
gentlemen.
still getting WrestleMania.
We made it. We are 2/3 of the way through. We got one more of these to go. I personally am looking forward to tomorrow. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we predicted it, or we at least said it, I believe, almost at this point, probably a good 3 or 4 months ago. But we've had Jesse long enough to be, guys, tomorrow, it's finally happening, yes. We will book 6 weeks of Dynamite and 1 AEW pay-per-view. Leroy will get us all a list of the current roster. We are not too...
I unfortunately know it.
We are not...
I don't.
All right. Now, we'll do it again tomorrow, and we'll expand on it. But the rules right now, the main rules that we have to agree to.
Okay.
You can't fire anyone.
Fuck! All right.
You have to use the roster in front of you.
God, I really want to get rid of Kip Sabian.
Number 2.
The blonde
No, hold on.
You just don't use them, man.
Hold on. But number 2, you don't have to use the entire roster.
Okay, that's fair.
But number 3, you have to keep into account that the people that we've seen are on there because their audience kind of wants to see it. So rule 3 is you have to book for an AEW audience.
Well, that's easy. That part's easy.
No. But it has to appeal to the NXT crowd as well.
Well,
you're booking for the AEW audience, but you have to be able to book for the other audience as well.
NXT,
we're trying to grow the brand.
But NXT fans are called smarks for a reason. They actually are intelligent.
Yeah, I know.
Like I said,
so
dude,
you got to do something to.
We got to make this hard. We
them.
can't just throw 6 weeks of television out there. They've done that, and look what happened.
Nothing good.
And number 4, the final main one, because this is something that is not in AEW, but I'm forcing us to use this. Your 6 weeks have to have a consistent flow.
Oh, that's easy.
They have to.
That's just easy.
Now, we are all
They don't do that now, so that's easy.
Now, remember, we are all building to a pay-per-view, and personally, I don't want us to spend the night thinking about this because we got to watch WrestleMania. We're going to do it live.
Oh, shit.
We are going to book this live. Look at 86-plus some wrestlers and book it live. And, Jesse, you get nothing from Dark and Elevation. Has to be Dynamite.
Oh!
Has to be Dynamite. You can't use the other shows to book Dynamite. This is a national television show. You got to use national television.
Fuck. All right.
All
Challenge accepted.
All right.
All right.
We got a bet. We got a challenge.
Holy
and
shit.
we have a big Meltzer news that's going to make Leroy drop, and Jesse's going to drop his bass voice. Like, probably. All right.
I'm excited to hear this tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Night 2 is very soon. Day 2 for us was great. Thank you guys for going on this journey with me. We're not done yet, but thank you for this.
Big ups to Darin Corbin.
Darin Corbin, we thank you, sir. It was a pleasure. We will obviously try to get him on later. And by the way, after WrestleMania weekend, JDX would like to come on at some point. So we're going to be talking to Justin D. Xavier about his week of WrestleMania as well. Don't have an exact date, but it's going to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you all very much. From 13 Cards, Subject Change, you can find us on Facebook. For some strange reason, we're back down to 199 likes. Don't know what that's about.
Hey, people get them back up.
One of those people is also not following us. We're at 198 follows, 199 likes. Don't know what that's about. Thank you, Derek Hansen, for being the 46th subscriber to our YouTube page. But get to that YouTube page. We got a bunch of stuff on there.
100.
We're also on Spotify. We are on iTunes. We are now on Amazon. Are we on Audible?
As far as I know, we are.
We are on Audible as well. Thank you all so very much. You can catch Jesse at twitch.tv.
Actually, tonight I will be doing a post-show, post-WrestleMania on Twitch. So twitch.tv/theblackness89.
Oh, sweet.
Come hop in. We'll talk WrestleMania for like 20, 30 minutes.
And just like yesterday, Leroy will have this show up shortly after Jesse and I walk out the door.
Yes.
All right, so Leroy, the bet. Put that.
I'll hold on to that bet.
Put that in a safe place. We thank you all very much, and y'all have a wonderful WrestleMania night 2.
I'm so scared now.